Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Lori Pratt, and as Electoral Area B Half Moon Bay Director for the Sunshine Coast Regional District, I will chair this public hearing. I would like to introduce SCRD Director Darnelda Seegers, who is in attendance as alternate chair, to hear your comments firsthand. SCRD Senior Planner Yuli Seo will introduce and state the intended purpose of the bylaws and answer any technical questions you may have concerning the bylaws. SCRD Recording Secretary Genevieve Dixon will be recording your comments this evening. I'd like to acknowledge some of our directors that have joined us this evening. From Area A, we have Director Leonard Lee. From Area D, we have Director Andreas Ties. From Area E, we have Director Donna McMahon. From Area F, we have Director Mark Hiltz. From the District of Sechelt, we have Director Alton Toth. And from the Town of Gibsons, we have Director David Kroll. Our director from the Sechelt Nation, Warren Paul, sends his regrets as he's unable to join us this evening. For staff that we have present for our public hearing, we have our, from our planning department, we have Julie Clark and Linda Fife, who will be assisting with moderating this evening and making sure attendees are able to have their opportunity to speak. I've introduced our senior planner, Yuli Seo. We also have our CAO, Dean McKinley, is watching us this evening. And of course, we can't forget our IT department. Bryce Vietanen is handling all of the technical details for us tonight, and we're very grateful to have our staff with us here. I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the meeting this evening. The Sunshine Coast Regional District spans the traditional territories of the Squamish and the Sechelt First Nations. So this public hearing is convened pursuant to Section 465 of the Local Government Act to allow the public to make representations to the board respecting matters contained in the proposed Sunshine Coast Regional District Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 310.184/2018 and Sunshine Coast Regional District Electoral Area A Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 337.118/2018. The public hearing with bylaw amendments were advertised in the June 19th and June 26th editions of the Coast Reporter newspaper. In response to COVID-19 and in accordance with the BC Government Ministerial Order M192 to authorize local governments to hold public hearings electronically, this public hearing is being held electronically via Zoom and is open to members of the public. As SCRD is unable to comply with public health orders by holding in-person open meetings, the SCRD board has adopted a resolution for the continued use of electronic meetings without the physical presence of the public. This resolution describes the following measures to be taken to ensure openness, transparency, accessibility, and accountability in respect of the meeting. Notice of the public hearing and instructions on how to attend the meeting are advertised in the newspaper, SCRD website, and social media. The electronic meeting allows the public to speak, hear, watch, and submit written comments. And you can still submit written comments to the planning department at planning.department@scrd.ca. until the end of this meeting when this meeting is called to a close. 3, technical support is provided to ensure all technical problems are resolved to enable accessibility of the meeting and related information. Written submissions by all other means continue to be accepted by the close of the public hearing, and this also includes the chat function of Zoom that will be saved as well. We ask that you please maintain respectful language and dialogue through the Zoom chat function as well, or you will be asked to leave this meeting. At this public hearing, any person present who believes his or her interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaws shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the proposed bylaws. None of you will be discouraged or prevented from making your views known. It is important that all who speak at this meeting restrict their remarks to matters contained in the bylaws. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes, except they may speak again after those who have not previously spoken have had an opportunity to make a submission. Those who have registered on the speakers list will have the opportunity to speak first in the order of the list. The identity of persons who make written or verbal submissions will form part of the public record. When speaking, please commence your remarks by clearly stating your name and your address. Members of the board may ask questions following the presentation. However, the function of the board at this public hearing is to listen rather than to debate the merits of the proposed bylaws. If you pre-registered to speak, you will be called on by the chair. Please wait for your turn. If you did not pre-register but wish to speak, please raise your hand in the webinar to indicate that you wish to speak. If you've signed in from a PC device using the Zoom app, you can click/tap the raised hand button and a member of staff will reach out to you in the chat to advise that you have been added to the speakers list. And once you have been added to the list, the member of the staff will lower your electronic hand as confirmation. If you are dialed in on a telephone, please press on a telephone only, press *9 to raise your hand and you will be added to the list, but we will only be able to identify you by your telephone number. And so when it's your turn to speak, the chair will say, the participant calling from 740-5555 is up next. Please listen for your phone number. Be patient. There may be a lot of speakers, but we will get to you. When the chair calls on you to speak by name or by your telephone number, if you called in, you will be allowed to address the meeting. You will still have to unmute your microphone when prompted. On the Zoom app, mute, unmute is selected from the lower screen. On a telephone, the microphone is muted, unmuted by pressing *6, but will be unable to unmute one until given direction to do so. When the staff moderator enables you to speak on the Zoom app, it often appears that the Zoom app has disconnected. Please be patient. This is only a momentary glitch. You do not need to log out. Please begin by stating your full name and address for the record. If you do not, the chair will interrupt you and ask you to provide this information. We are required to collect it from everyone who addresses a public hearing. After you have spoken, we will lower your hand if you have not already done so yourself. If you wish to address the hearing again once everyone has had the chance to speak, please raise your hand again and we will follow the same procedure. After this public hearing has concluded, the board, during a following open public meeting, may, without further notice or hearing, adopt or defeat the bylaws or alter and then adopt the bylaws, providing that the alteration does not alter the use or increase the density. May I remind you that tonight is your opportunity for input on the bylaws and no further information can be received once the public hearing has concluded. Elected officials are not permitted to receive any communication or correspondence such as email, phone calls, or written submissions after the close of a public hearing. Any further submissions need to be directed to staff. I will now ask our SCRD Senior Planner, Yuli Seo, to introduce and state the purpose of the proposed bylaws. Yuli, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Let me just share my screen. Okay. Thank you for attending tonight's public hearing for two important bylaw amendments concerning short-term rental, accommodation, and bed and breakfast. There are two zoning bylaws we are considering tonight. Bylaw 337 covers the Panda Harbor and Egmont area. Bylaw 310 covers the rest of the SCRD electoral area, including Half Moon Bay, Roberts Creek, Elphinstone, and West House Sound. The bylaws do not apply to District of Sechelt, Town of Gibsons, or First Nation lands. Public consultation on issues related to short-term rental accommodation started 3 years ago, well before the proposed bylaws were introduced. Further consultation was carried out before the first public hearing last year. The SCRD recently revised the proposed bylaws that were considered at the first public hearing. And that's why you are offered an opportunity tonight to give your feedback on the revised bylaws at the second public hearing. The major differences among the current bylaws, the bylaws proposed at the first public hearing, and the recently revised bylaws are the current bylaws and the revised bylaws considered at the second public hearing permit only bed and breakfast, which must be operated by a resident who lives on the property. The bylaws proposed at the first public hearing permit both bed and breakfast operated by an on-site operator and short-term rental accommodation operated by an off-site operator with a temporary use permit. The revised bylaws are largely based on the current bylaws, but have more clear and consistent regulations. Bed and breakfast is redefined as a transient commercial accommodation auxiliary to the residential use of a dwelling for the same occupant staying not more than 30 consecutive days. A definition for residential use is also added to distinguish residential use from commercial use of a dwelling. Short-term rental accommodation can be considered a form of bed and breakfast if it meets the definition and regulation of bed and breakfast. Providing breakfast is no longer a defining factor for a bed and breakfast. And after all, short-term rental is almost synonymous with Airbnb, which means air, bed, and breakfast. Well, so you get the idea. And let's compare the regulations between the proposed and the current bylaws. As you can see in the first 3 rows in this table, the regulations remain unchanged. An operator must live on the property where and when the bed and breakfast is in operation. The number of bedrooms that can be used for bed and breakfast is according to the zoning of the property. The number of bedrooms that can be used for bed and breakfast is according to the zone of the property. And the requirement for water supply, sewage treatment, signage, and on-site parking are all the same. The only difference is that the limit on the number of occupants is made consistent across 2 bylaws to reinforce the intent of the zoning bylaw and OCP for the B&B to be an auxiliary use. The total number of occupants for the entire B&B will be calculated based on the formula of 2 occupants per permitted bedroom. Such a limit already existed in Bylaw 337, but not in Bylaw 310. So there is no restriction on how many people can stay in each bedroom. And finally, for your information, not part of these bylaws in order to support bylaw enforcement and improve bylaw compliance. Through two separate bylaw amendments, the SCRD has increased fines for short-term rental and bed and breakfast related infractions to the maximum allowable amount within the legislation. And with that, I conclude my presentation, and I return the meeting back to the chair. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Yuli. Just to advise everyone, we will be taking a break around 8:30. I know we have a very lengthy speakers list, so depending on where we are in a presentation, we'll be taking between a 5 and 10 minute break at 8:30. We'll advise when we get there. This is our first electronic public hearing on the Sunshine Coast amongst any of the local governments. So please be patient. We're all a little new at this still, and it's interesting times. Call for innovative solutions to ensure that we maintain public dialogue. So please maintain respectful language during your presentations. Everyone will be given an opportunity to speak if you would like to speak. And once again, please be patient. And you are always welcome to email your submissions to planning.department@scrd.ca just to make sure it arrives or you send it prior to the close of this public hearing. And with that, I'd like to call on for a first time for submissions in the order of the speakers list. Once again, each person will be given 3 minutes to speak, each presenter. And then from there, we will move through the list. So remember to please state your name and your address once you join the directors and staff in our speakers room. And so with that, I am going to ask our staff to move Deborah Carson into, and you can become our very first speaker of our very first electronic public hearing. Okay, so Deborah, you are on mute right now. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Okay, so please go ahead. Your name and your address.
Deborah Carson, 1861 Lower Road, Roberts Creek. So I am in support of the amendment as proposed by the SCRD. As a homeowner in Roberts Creek, we've seen our quiet neighborhood change from a place of refuge and community with the introduction of a 5-bedroom short-term rental. Our neighborhood used to be a place where we wandered back and forth to have visits together. Our children would go and visit or pick chestnuts at a neighborhood. In short, it was really a community. And that changed when our friends sold their home, and the next thing we knew, the house was being operated as a short-term rental. Even though the listing stated no noise after 10, with no operator or owner on site, there was no enforcement. Almost every weekend, a new group arrived to enjoy the house, beach, and the majority of them to party. As the house was advertised to sleep 10 with room for more, the groups were large and noisy. Our neighborhood of young families, working people, and retired citizens began dreading the approach of each weekend. And then the summer arrived, and with it almost constant bookings, both weekends and weekdays. We had loud noise, often with foul language, till the early hours in the morning. We worried about fires, as many people renting the house did not understand how dry our area was. Garbage, including drug needles, were often left on the beach and not cleaned up by the renters or the people hired to clean. So we tried lots of different tactics. There was somebody on the coast in Half Moon Bay, and she said that we could call her. So we called her, we texted her, and then she just stopped answering the texts. So the only solution that we had was to make complaints at the SCRD, which we did, and to contact the RCMP. So I guess, unfortunately, when people come to party, they were not empathetic to our needs, and they have no sense of the community that it's us that are living in. The first goal of the Roberts Creek OCP is to actively support a welcoming and friendly atmosphere and reinforce a strong sense of community and neighborhood. A short-term rental operating in a residential neighborhood with no operator on site equates to a transient population with no connection to community. I believe that requiring an owner or operator to be on site when the B&B or short-term rental is operating would make a difference. Someone who is part of the community would be on site and would be responsible to control the behavior, noise, and safety issues that concern us. Under present conditions, when a house is being operated as a short-term rental with no owner or operator on site, it is basically a commercial operation and should not be operating in a residential area. I also do support the 2-bedroom limit, although I acknowledge the 2 people per bedroom is rather discriminating against a family of 5 or 6. With myself, I have 4 children, and it would be impossible for me to rent a short-term rental there. So some municipalities and areas have simply not allowed any short-term rentals as their solution. I applaud the SCRD for finding a middle ground.
Deborah, unfortunately, you're at the end of your 3 minutes. And I did give you a few extra seconds too, because it took just a moment. Do you just have another sentence or two?
I just wanted to say that some municipalities and areas have just said no short-term rentals at all. And I applaud the SCRD for finding a middle ground that allows short-term rentals while respecting and maintaining the integrity of residential neighborhoods. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Deborah, and thank you for being brave enough to be our very first speaker. We really appreciate it. Staff will take care of moving you out. Next up on our list is Brenda Sopel. Brenda, are you on the attendee list? Brenda, are you joining us via phone? Have we found Brenda?
At this point, we do not see Brenda in the attendee list. If you are Brenda and you're in under another name by mistake, just raise your hand. I see a few people are just in as, their phone's name.
Yes. Okay. We'll just give a moment. Okay, because what we can do, can we insert her in if she happens to arrive?
We can just push her to the bottom of the current list. There's about 12 or 13 people, and then when she comes up again, we'll see if she's here.
Okay. Okay, I'll give you one last chance, Brenda, and I've also, if we could just have a moment, Brenda. I've also sent her a message as well. It's the beauty of a small community when you know people. Okay, so we'll keep Brenda on the list, but we'll just move her down, and we'll go to our next speaker that also has a screen share. So Samantha Stanway is getting moved into our panelist forum here. Okay, Samantha, if you can unmute yourself, and then once you start with your introduction of your name and address, then that's when your 3 minutes will begin, and you will be able to screen share as well. So if we just need a moment. Samantha, you are still muted.
How about now? Can you guys hear me now?
There you go. We can hear you now. Perfect.
Okay, good. Well, thanks for having me. Let me just get my screen share up and running and we can get rolling. All right. Can you guys see what I'm doing?
We'll be able to see it as soon as it goes live. So we can't see anything yet, Samantha.
First time Zoom meeting, hey? Oh my goodness. All right.
First time electronic public hearing, so
Yeah,
we're all
yeah.
being patient and learning. So
Okay, so, huh? Do you know anything about this? Oh, well. Oh, start video. Here we go. Hey guys.
hi.
All right, let's share screen.
Okay.
All right. So, can you guys see everything on here?
No, we just see you, Samantha.
Just me. Bummer. Okay. We don't want
Okay.
that.
So, and you've clicked on the share screen button on the bottom of your screen?
I think I just figured it
Oh,
out.
there we go. There we go.
Your screen
Perfect.
sharing. All right. So my name is Samantha Stanway. I am calling in from 981 Chamberlain Road in Gibsons, BC. And I'm on the opposing side of the last caller. She made some good points, but I'm here to talk to you about the pros of short-term rentals. I'm a large STR owner-operator. It's family-owned business. My parents have lived here since 1967. We're not offshore billionaires or anything like that. Self-made business people, didn't get ahead of the house. We think that we can coexist with hotels because we offer a service that no hotels up here can. There isn't a place on the coast, specifically in Gibsons, where 3 families can get together to stay, cook, swim, eat, et cetera, et cetera. So what we want to do is to bring tourism dollars to the coast, not just in summertime. We're booked year round. We want to crack down on negligent operators like the last caller described. They're giving us all a really bad name. We want to leave the large STRs that aren't causing trouble alone. It's been 6 years. We haven't had a single complaint, and we take a lot of pride in what we do. So there's a bit of a witch hunt going on right now. There's a few bad apples that have given us a really, really bad rap. And we think we should penalize those guys harder, really support what you're doing about raising the fines. Just keep communities good. And if there's a large STR in a remote area, I don't think it's causing any trouble. Doesn't make sense to proactively enforce and go after them. The biggest issue I want to talk to you guys about today is STRs over 2 bedrooms. Now, until now, there have always been STR on the coast with more than 2 bedrooms. Bedroom limit wasn't an issue. It hasn't been proactively enforced until now. So I've heard talk that there's a plan to spend taxpayer money to spy on these STRs. Now, chasing large STRs isn't really an effective solution to a housing crisis because the reality is if you shut down those operations, they won't suddenly become on the market for workers. They'll become empty. So it's kind of a crazy thing shutting these all down. We kind of want to be opening up entry-level housing, which is 2-bedroom and under homes, not 3-bedroom over. I think it's a little bit backwards, open to suggestions, open to different solutions that people are tabling here. But I think we're urging people to stop and think about the economy. You're yanking away the livelihoods of my family, the other people operating large STRs, and all the people that we hire. Come down hard on the crappy renters. It's not rocket science to run an STR without disrupting a neighborhood. And let's build a Sunshine Coast that's friendly to the tourists that we all love. That's it for me.
Okay, terrific, Samantha. Before you go, I'm going to ask the directors if you have any questions for Samantha. No, I'm not seeing anything. Samantha, even with the stilted start, you still have 10 seconds left.
Awesome. All right.
Okay.
Use it for my modeling portfolio, I guess. No, thanks for having me, guys. And I really hope that we can work together for some collaborative solutions and understand both sides of the stories. I think there's a way for everyone to win here. I'm glad that we're keeping the dialogue open.
Okay, terrific. Okay, thank you, Samantha. Next up on our list is John Stanway, and I'm going to put a stab out. Samantha, is that your spouse? Oh, we lost Samantha. John Stanway is our next speaker. There we are. Oh, okay, great. John Stanway is Samantha's father. Okay, John, you are muted right now.
You're unmuted. Do you want video too?
There we go.
Can you
And I
hear me
hear
now?
that familiar Samantha voice as well. So fantastic. Okay, John, as soon as you start with your introduction of your name and your address, then you go right ahead into your remarks.
My name's John Stanway, 1574 Smith Road, Langdale, and 981 Chamberlain Road, Gibsons. I'm hoping you can hear me. Hello?
Yes, John, we can.
Oh,
Go
good.
right
Okay.
ahead.
Okay, I've done a lot of investigating into this, and I keep hearing about the hotel tax, that it's an unfair advantage against hotels. When you operate a short-term rental, you're not paying a hotel tax. First off, that's incorrect. I pay the hotel tax, I pay PST, I pay GST, 16% sales tax on all the business we do. I've operated a short-term rental for 6 years, and in 6 years, I've had not one complaint. Not one. And granted, I'm on 2.5 acres. I have 900 feet of waterfront, and my neighbors actually support it. They're very good. I've brought many celebrities to the coast, and I don't want to drop any names because I think it's inappropriate. But before this COVID thing, we were having a member of Pink Floyd come to the coast. Shout outs to Pink Floyd, guys. Anyone? So that kind of stuff. We had what the guys, Duck Dynasty guys come.
They're racist.
Who were they were racist, but they were a big hit on the coast, and they were here for 2 weeks, and they were awesome. Also, I hear about the rental market, much as Sam has touched on. It's absolutely backwards. There's no way I could rent my house out to anybody. I bought a farm up on 98 Chamberlain Road on the understanding that what I was doing there would be fine. It's complaint based, not that I was doing anything wrong. I spoke in length with Mr. Hiltz prior to the election, and everything I said, I spoke with him for at least 45 minutes. And he assured me that, oh yeah, I support you 100%. It was like he was going to champion our cause, but from the meetings I've attended to, that wasn't the case. Real estate market, we're being blamed for bringing the big real estate market. That's not at all true, because the real estate market is an escape from Vancouver. Job creation, they're saying that hotels create more jobs. We are not competing against hotels whatsoever. There's no way that a family of 12, like 3 different families, are going to come and rent a hotel. They're going to be gone. That will be money that is not coming to the coast. And I've gotten when Tofino did their thing over there with this spyware and all this on short-term rentals, we got their tourists from Tofino. I want you to appreciate that. We got their tourists. Job creation, we create a lot of jobs, everything from the laundromat to the cleaners and we pay our cleaners $30 an hour, and they support their families. It's an income source for me.
John, you are at the end of your 3 minutes.
One more thing quickly. I had a Facebook petition that had 500 signatures, Lori, 500 signatures in favor. Sorry, I couldn't get to everything. 3 minutes is rather limiting. I understood we had 5 minutes.
Because of the electronic nature, you will, if you would like to speak again, please do put your electronic hand up, and staff will certainly add you back to the list. It's just, we knew we would have a big turnout for this meeting, so we wanted to make sure that everybody had at least one, had an earlier chance to speak. So please ensure that you put your electronic hand up as well, and make sure that you can also submit your submission as a written submission prior to the end of this meeting to planning.department@scrd.ca. I would also, there was a question in the chat regarding temporary use permits. There seems to be some confusion. This public hearing is not dealing with the temporary use permit. That was the piece that we discussed that last year, and we've just the board decided not to follow through on the temporary use permit. If you go back to our website at scrd.ca/str, you can see the rest of the information about what we're discussing tonight. But with that, I'm going to continue moving through our speakers list as it has gotten lengthy. So the next up on the list is Nick Ferrer. Nick Ferrer. Nick, if you've joined by a phone. Nick Ferrer, if you can raise your electronic hand.
We don't see a Nick here, so perhaps we'll just move him to the bottom of the list and try again later if he turns up.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so next up we have Jennifer Burgess. Jennifer Burgess, you are being moved into. Okay, so Jennifer, you are in the webinar now. Or with the panelists,
Okay.
and you have figured out how to unmute yourself, so congratulations. And if you can start by stating your name and address and then go right ahead.
Okay, my name is Jennifer Burgess and I live at 5674 Annex Road, Seashelt. Thanks for letting me join, and let me first express that I am in favor of tourism and economic growth on the Sunshine Coast. It is what so many families living here and businesses operating here depend on. I've lived here on the coast for 17 years and can say that I am not in favor of what I have seen with the short-term rental accommodations in recent years, most notably in the last 5 years since I have had what I call a hotel operating directly across the street from me. I think it is great that local governments are finally moving on addressing the problems surrounding the changing neighborhood dynamic. And I think that the bylaw amendments 310 and 337 seem reasonable. And the separation of the short-term rental accommodations, I'm a bit confused whether they're being taken out of the bylaws or whatever into something different. But I just want to say a few things about the short-term rentals. So I don't live in the SCRD region. I'm actually in the district of Seashelt, in a very quiet neighborhood of about 25 houses at the very western edge of the district. I'm interested in what the local governments are doing with respect to zoning and bylaw changes surrounding short-term rental accommodations, because logic would dictate that each government would be facing the same concerns and therefore coming up with similar rules and regulations. And since the district of Seashelt has yet to move forward with their public consultation, I'm interested in what's happening here. I think that the staff have heard and understood the main problems presented by the public very well, namely the scale of operations, the presence of on-site owner-operators, and the need for more bylaw enforcement. So I wanted to weigh in with my thoughts about these problems, but before I do that, I'd like to say a few words about what is in my mind the bigger picture. I think that Vancouver has the right idea with their homes first, commodity second motto. We have to remember that many people live here, pay taxes here, have built a community here, and expected when they purchased their home that they would enjoy the quiet and respect that goes along with living in a residential neighborhood in a small town. I don't know if anyone's ever looked at the rental listings online and seen the rates that these individual rooms are being charged out at, and the additional, along with the additional cleaning costs, pet charges, etc. And then look at the booking schedule and how booked up these places are. Well, if you have, it'll become pretty obvious that there's a very good living to be made out of running a short-term rental accommodation business. I'm not talking about the small Airbnb operators that, people are renting out a room, trying to help pay the mortgage because the cost of living is going up. I'm talking about actual businesses that are being run under the radar by people that are looking to purchase investment properties, yet not live here, and they hire it out like a hotel for their interests, disrupting quiet residential neighborhoods. Who pays for that?
Jennifer,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you're just at your 3 minutes.
Oh,
Yeah, I know it goes very quickly. If you,
Wow.
yeah, if you'd like to be added on to,
Yeah, I'm not done.
Okay, if you'd like to be added on for a second time, please put your hand up and you will get added back
Okay.
in.
You bet.
Okay, and also please know that you can also
Submit.
submit via email. Okay.
You bet. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up, we have Jane McHewitt. Okay, Jane, you're within the webinar function with the panelists. If you'd like to unmute yourself, please. Okay, and hi, Jane. And if you'd like to introduce yourself and what your address is, and then your time starts when you introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Jane McHewitt-Ferrer, and I live at 13367 Lee Road in Urbans Landing. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. I feel that my neighborhood has been totally changed by the number of both B&Bs and short-term rental in whatever form you say. They don't care about our road. They don't care about yahooing past the house at night, being on the beach and saying, hey, let's light a fire, or any of those things. And, none of the neighbors here do that, nor do the people who have summer homes here do that. That's purely people that don't have a vested interest in the place. I do think that we need the tourism on the coast, and I don't wish for that to go away, but I do think that we need to we probably need to build more hotels. And unlike somebody who spoke earlier, who said, they will not fill up with people who people who are working. Well, in the summer, it will be difficult for that. But yes, there are always people looking for places. Another thing that I wanted to say, I have lived here for over 30 years. So this is a really unpleasant change. And it's happened in probably the last 4 to 5 years. Well, I've got things like my community is overrun and all sorts of dramatic feelings that I have, but I feel that way. I feel that it isn't mine anymore, and it makes me really sad. There are lots of holiday homes in our area, and those people also really care about our place. So it's not about having people who are not living here all the time. Somebody said, oh, it's just a few bad apples that are causing this. No, it's I believe endemic might be the right word in the whole situation, that you can't have people, I mean, they come here to party, they come here to play, to holiday and everything else, and they want that. Oh, that's in a minute. We have now, our only opportunities are to call the RCMP, who are, we're not going to come all the way up to Pender Harbor, really, who does it. And the bylaw officer is not available in general. And if we're going to have this kind of ruling, we need to have teeth in it. So there needs to be somebody 24 hours a day to call, not just the person who lives on the site. I think I'm just about out of time. So thank you very much. I don't enjoy paying other people's mortgage on my back and my community's back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jane. I'm going to look to the directors. Any questions?
Save the 1 second. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you so much, Jane. Take care. Okay, all right. So that was Jane. Next up, we have Deb and Derek Altry after Jane. So
we do have someone in attendee list who's going just by Deb. We asked in chat if this is Deb Altree, but we have not heard back yet.
Okay, Deb in chat, is that Deb Altree in there?
If it is you, Deb, could you raise your hand in Zoom?
No, there's someone putting profanities in the chat.
Yeah, one moment.
Okay, so let's, Gloria Smith, I'm going to be removing you from this session, please.
Gloria Smith.
And Max Munson. We are getting spam, so just hang on, please, everyone. Patience, please.
Good times. One moment.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, this is lovely on
one moment,
electronic
please.
publication. Okay. Is there any way, I don't know if we can lock the chat, or we need to, because we need it for the session as well.
Sorry, this is Chris from IT. So we're being brigaded, which is when a lot of fake people join the meeting. So we're just going to have a brief recess while we deal with this technically.
Okay. All right. So, so we are calling a brief recess. Director Seegers, is that what you were going to ask for as well?
Yes, please.
Yes. Okay. We're going to take a brief recess so our IT department can take care of the miscreants that are bombing us here. So we will, let's,
5 minutes.
yeah, let's start with 5 minutes with an eye to maybe potentially a little bit longer, but we'll see you all back here in 5 minutes.
So the chat is locked as of shortly after it started, although about 100 spam messages got deposited into it first. It looks like it was pretty much a drive-by, as it were. All of the names who posted those messages left the meeting as soon as they posted, pretty much. So,
Okay.
I think at this point it may be safest to proceed with the chat disabled.
Okay.
And if anyone wants to speak, they will have to raise their hand to do that.
Okay.
So I see a couple of raised hands so far. Anyone else who wants to, yes, a few more. I believe we confirmed while that was happening that the Deb
Yeah.
who is in the list is in fact Deb Altree. So I think we're ready to resume when you are, and I see that Nick Farrer appeared. So when his name comes back up, he'll be available as well.
Great. And I've heard from Brenda Sopel and via text message, and she's decided not to speak, so to get taken off of the list, please. Great. Okay. Well, I had said 5 minutes at 7:48, so we're just going to wait until 7:53 before we call us back to order. Well, that was lovely. A drive. So that's called brigading.
Yeah, Zoom bombing. Fortunately, because attendees in this meeting can't put anything into the video feed, we only had to deal with the chat aspect of it. It's the challenge with a publicly accessible thing on the internet. And I think we'll just move forward with the chat disabled.
Okay, so be it. All right. Okay, so with that, Bryce, whenever, if we're ready with staff, if I can see thumbs up all the way around. Thumbs up directors, thumbs up staff. Yuli, you're good, okay. Linda and Julie, good to go? Okay. Linda and Julie, are you guys okay too? Ready to go?
Yeah,
We're ready to go.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we'll just call the meeting back from recess, and because of that lovely brigading, which is a new term for me, or also known as Zoom bombing, just so everyone is aware, we have locked the chat function for the attendees. So the chat will not be accessible. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand and you will be acknowledged as we go through, okay? And please be patient. We will make sure that everyone has an opportunity. And once again, it is 3 minutes per speaking time. You can call, or you can speak more than once, but it is limited to 3 minutes each time, okay? So we'll just continue through. And once again, we're still on our first time for submissions for this electronic public hearing. And we have Deb Altree is up. And Deb, you're ready to go?
I am, yes.
Okay, so you have 3 minutes once you've introduced yourself and it said your address, please.
Hi, my name is Deb, actually Warburton, but my partner's Altree, and I'm from 13499 Lee Road, that's Garden Bay. We bought our house 12 years ago without an Airbnb next door to us. It was a family home that used to use it just for the summertime, and now it is an Airbnb. In fact, we had Airbnbs both sides. What my problem is the fact that when we do have problems, because the people who own the property live off coast, we have no way of getting hold of them apart from an email, and they don't reply to us. Earlier last year, we had we had to call the police out, which they wouldn't actually come. We have been in and made complaints into the SCRD, but you're too busy to do that. And really, if they are going to rent out these places of Airbnb or whatever it is, VRBO, there really needs to be some form of law to be how you can get hold of the owners, because we live here and we have to deal with this. And it might be nice if you're on a 2-acre lot where, when people are partying, it's fine. But when they're right next door to you, and we had 78 visitors just last year, and that's not just one, that's one visit is 78. That could have been 4 people. They are 2-bedroom properties, and last New Year we had 13 people there. We can't keep phoning the police up. It's not fair. Why should we? When people who own these properties live off course with no manager, we just get the cleaners come in and they're not interested. The owners are not interested because they're making the money. They bring nothing to the community. They bring the bags full of Costco goods. They might use the restaurants, but most of them just stay in. And we do have a lot that party, and it has changed our community. They don't get involved with anything. We volunteer for things. They're just here. And when you complain, they're gone in 2 days. So what does it matter? And they say they won't book them again, but then you get somebody else coming along who's just as bad. So I think if you've got an Airbnb or a short-term rental next to you and you're not having any problems, that's great. But what there needs to be is some way that we can get some answers to these problems that we have when we do get bad renters in. Dogs off leashes, they just get out the car and leave the dogs, let the dogs roam, and we need something that we can to deal with this, because it ruins our lives. In the summer, we hate it now, and it's just not fair. We pay our taxes, and we came to a place that is quiet. With a few, we don't want to stop all the things, but it's just it doesn't make our lives pleasant, and it's just not fair.
Okay. So thanks, Deb. And thank you. You kept it within that 3 minutes. Directors, any notes for or questions for Deb? Director Hiltz, you have a question?
Yes, thanks, Deb. If you could be kind of specific about the nature of the complaints, is it noise, parking?
It's not the parking, because most of the premises here have parking, but like we have noise, fights. We have had a fight. We did actually complain to the owners, but they never even got back to us. We did actually call the police out, and they said, was there any guns involved? And to be honest, we don't want to go and knock on these houses when they're having problems. And we have made complaints, but we don't get anywhere. Nothing comes out of it. So all these people that rent the houses out, we really need phone numbers or something where we can get hold of somebody, because they don't live on course. I understand anybody renting out a property on their land, if they've got 2 homes. I understand anybody renting out their basement suite or them living in the basement suite, and because they are there. This is not a campsite. At 10:30 on a campsite, you have a warden that goes around and tells people to be quiet. And, we're not on a campsite. We're in a residential area.
Okay. Thank you, Deb. I'm not seeing any other questions from directors. Thank you very much, Deb, for your presentation and for speaking. Next up, we have Rola Pratal. Okay, Rola, you are muted right now. Rola?
Me?
Yes, I can hear you now, Rola.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Oh,
please.
there we are. Sorry, I was going on a different screen. different Zoom ones have different screens. Okay, so hi, thank you, Council. This is Rola Priato, 3241 Beach Ave. I am not in support of the amendment, but I certainly agree with the first speaker, Deborah, and the last speaker, Ms. Warburton, about the party houses and the non-community respecting people coming to the coast as if it's Vegas. And that scenario just cannot exist. Those houses must have a caretaker living on site should they wish to continue. We bought our future retirement home, this one that I'm here at, 2 years ago from another local Vancouver family for their asking price, and our mortgage is $7,000 a month. We cannot live here full time because we own a small business in town and our 3 boys are in public schools and sports. The realtor who sold it to us knew that we will be renting it to chosen other families who can enjoy it when we cannot, who I vet so well. This is where I spend most of my time, vetting these families. I've only had wonderful small families coming here, never loud, never disobeying any of the rules, including where exactly to park their cars. I've never had any complaints about my guests. These people are very community people who come with their kids because our rules say that out of the 9 people allowed here, 3 must be kids under 12. They're usually indoors by 9 p.m. My guests send me messages on how lucky they are to stay here and how they love the neighborhood businesses, especially the Wednesday market. Christy McDonald, my caretaker, lives a few minutes away, and she's so thankful to have a job that pays her bills, but also can keep her at home with her young children. I very much am wondering, why can't B's and B's like my place? Why can't we be still existing? We're making the rules. I put it all in writing. The guests sign contracts. Somebody spoke to say that she wanted to keep the coast quiet, but then she says she wanted hotels. So that would mean all tourists would be in one place instead of distributing the BC guests, the BC tourists all over our coast so that all small businesses can benefit. Someone says they don't want to pay other people's mortgages. Well, we people who have houses here pay into the schools and the taxes on the coast, but we don't even use those facilities. Just as Ms. Warburton just said, if a house who vets their guests and has no complaints, then keep them running. She also said to provide a phone number. That is a great idea. That's a solution. Why can't we give our caretakers numbers? I'm sure Christy would be happy to give it to all my 4 neighbors, 2 next to me and 2 across the street. It gives, and she's happy to be here within 3 minutes of any complaints should they ever happen. And I promise they will never happen because I know who I rent it to. It gives me so much joy to receive the words and the cards, even the flowers and the gifts that my guests leave behind. I have the exact same guests that come every year anyway. I have my neighbor here next door who originally did not want me to have this Airbnb here. She sends me now regular messages to tell me how much she and her grandkids have enjoyed my guests. I urge you to let me work with you. I'm ready to have each one of my guests register with the SCRD, and whatever rules, I'm happy to pay. I know you didn't want any user fees for some reason. I think they're a great idea. But so that those
Rola, we are at the end of your 3 minutes.
Okay, I just wanted to improve the economy of the coast. Let us allow other BC guests to come here and spend their money in these ways.
Okay, thank you. Directors, any questions for the presenter? Okay, thank you very much, Rola. And
okay, thank you.
Will move on to our next speaker. We have Donna Sugar.
Hi there.
Hi, Donna. Go ahead.
I love this format. I can attend a public hearing and make my dinner at the same time. It's terrific. I did want to speak in favor of
name and address, please.
Sugar 1076 Crow Road, Roberts Creek.
Thank you.
I am in favor of most of what is being proposed. But there is one area that I have some concerns with. So the part that I appreciate is the need to have an operator on site. It doesn't have to be the owner. It can be a designate. It can be someone who rents the property and with permission of the owner is operating. a bed and breakfast, that's fine. But that is, to me, the way of controlling partying, noise, and other kinds of disruptions. But I think there should be more flexibility as to the number of bedrooms and the number of people in a bedroom. I think that's a very weird designation, 2 people in a bedroom, that really precludes families from coming and using bed and breakfasts, especially families with small children where the kids would be in the room with the parents. It kind of precludes a situation where you may have a building on the property that is separate from the main house, where a family could enjoy the Sunshine Coast. I get from what Yuli said that you've harmonized by eliminating that flexibility that was in Bylaw 337 and gone to the rigidity of what was in Bylaw 310. And I think perhaps you should look at doing it the other way, so that it may be more in line with the zoning or some other formula to give some more flexibility to numbers. If there is an operator on site controlling behavior, then why would you restrict basically 4 people at your bed and breakfast, 2 per bedroom, 2 bedrooms? So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Donna. Directors, any questions for Donna? Director Hiltz.
Thanks, Sherry. Hi, Donna. The question I have is, when you say someone is on site and not necessarily the owner, is the expectation that they're living there? Or if you could just say what you mean by what on site means to you.
Yeah, that's what I understood the bylaw to read, that it has to be somebody resident on site. That is what I'm assuming is in the bylaw, and that is what I would support. It should be a resident on site, but I don't know why it would have to necessarily be the owner of the property, as long as the owner was in agreement with the use.
Okay, thanks, Donna. I'm going to look to the other directors for any other questions. Oh, Director McMahon. So Donna to Donna.
I can't resist asking, what's for dinner, Donna?
Actually, it's pretty limited because I thought we were going to somebody else's house. So I'm scrambling. It's all from the garden, though. Potatoes and kale and strawberry shortcake. Sorry.
Excellent. No, that's fine. And I'm glad, as a former rural director for the SCRD, I'm so glad that you were able to participate in this this as a format. So
thank you. Been looking forward to this for a while.
Excellent. Okay, thanks, Donna. Next up on our list, we have 604-885-1411. Our first telephone number. Okay, so 885-1411, you are now in the hearing. If you could state your name and address, please.
Yes, hi, good evening. It's Peter Sugden from 2003 Coach Road, Roberts Creek, BC. How are you doing this evening?
Doing well. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Thanks. Okay. I just wanted to say, without even considering the intermittent noise complaint factor, we have to really consider the financial implications of allowing STVRs on the coast. My contention is, we've owned our home on the coast since 2001, and I must say that the permission of STVRs basically indulges the real estate investors who seek opportunities based on highest and best use, otherwise known as HBU. And what this means is that if a 2-bedroom STVR house is being rented at $150 to $250 a night, it can achieve a 60% occupancy year-round, let's say. I could thus be generating, $32,000 to $54,000 a year, as opposed to the normal $2,000 a month that a 2-bedroom might normally rent for. So under the STVR model, investors are thus willing to pay a lot more for the underlying real estate, as it is able to generate perhaps as much as twice the annual revenue that a regular residential tenancy might earn. Doing the math, if too many STVR homes are present on the coast, we're going to see continuing inflation of home prices on the coast. Real estate values rise as a multiple of the income that those properties can generate. Even though I've basically got my mortgage paid off, I certainly don't want to see needless inflation of the surrounding real estate. Inflated realty prices have been the scourge that has afflicted Vancouver, and this is certainly not why I decided to retire on the Sunshine Coast. Anyway, I don't have too much more to add than that, but I just, I think we really got to think hard about how many STVRs we have running on the coast. Yes, tourism is great. And I think I would like to add also that I've long held that the Sunshine Coast really needs to build a flag chain hotel somewhere, which could be used by tourists in the summer and for corporate conferences in the shoulder season. I used to go with Business Development Bank all the way to Kamloops for our provincial conferences, but I was thinking it would have been much better if we'd been going to a place like the Sunshine Coast where the bulk of our workers were residing. Why travel, 4 hours to Kamloops when you can do your conference right in Sunshine Coast? So I just really think we're missing the boat. We really need to have a flag hotel somewhere here on the coast, and that would be the remedy that would reduce the, we'd be able to employ our youth locally in the flag hotels. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thanks very much for the time.
Okay, Peter, and what was your last name again? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Sugden, that's Sugden.
Okay, thank you so much. And you were from Coach Road, so I got that.
Yep.
Okay, directors, any questions for Peter? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, Peter.
Thank you.
Okay, and you'll get moved back into the waiting room. So, okay, so next up on our list, we have Hussein.
I believe that he actually left the meeting a little while ago.
Okay.
So would you like us to push it to the bottom like we've been doing with some people, or just take him off for now?
Let's put him to the bottom just in case it was a technical glitch.
Okay.
And, or if he came in through some other way. Hussein, if you are in here under a different name, please raise your hand and staff will take care of you. I saw a raised hand there. Okay. If not, we'll put him to the bottom of the list, Bryce, and we'll go to the next on our list, which we have Deb. Now, is this Deb from before or a different Deb?
Hi, Lori, it's Julie here. It's possible that was Deb Altry from before, but we're not clear.
Okay. So the Deb that we have on here, is that Deb Altry? I'm just checking. And I don't see that Deb on the list of attendees anymore either, Julie, unless you do.
Yeah, we don't see her either. I believe she left after she had her.
And then Jennifer, is that Jennifer Burgess again?
It may be this is from before the brigading, and it's difficult for us when we cannot see first and last names on the Zoom. So for folks who are in and watching, if you could update your Zoom names with first and last names, that would be really helpful on our end. This may be Jennifer Burgess, and if so, I've added Jennifer to the list of people who wish to speak a second time.
Okay, so we have a Jennifer in the list of attendees. So Jennifer, in the list of attendees, if you are Jennifer Burgess, can you put your hand up now? Okay, so that's Jennifer Burgess. Jennifer Burgess, we're putting you on the list for the second round because you've already had one opportunity to speak. Oh, just hang on. We've added her into the list just to make sure. Jennifer, can you unmute yourself, please?
I know we're just moving her off to the bottom, and we'll
Yeah,
bring
I thought
Terrence
I was
up.
going later.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Well, we've confirmed it's you now, so there we go. Okay, so this is the joys of electronic public engagement. Okay, so next up we have Terrence.
You need to unmute yourself, Terrence. Oh, there you go.
There we go.
Okay. Hello, Terrence.
Hello there. I think I have it now. Just
All right,
my
Terrence,
screen
if you could-
disappeared.
Okay, if you can state your full name and address, and then you have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay. So my name is Terrence Rieger, and I'm at 1834 Ocean Beach Esplanade, just outside of Gibson's. But I guess I'm SCRD. I have to say, there's been a lot of good points brought up for and against this whole proposal. And I certainly have to agree with other people's rights to enjoy their peace and quiet, and also the homeowners' rights to use their property to offset their cost, as BC does seem to live up to its name, bring cash, and has lower wages but higher cost of living, especially out here. It seems like compromise is critical. There's been people speaking who have are good operators. I do some Airbnb here as well, and I live here, and I demand it of any of my guests that they be respectful. Otherwise, there's the curb. I do wonder, why do we not have proper enforcement, even at $500 fines for non-compliance, and this talk of raising it to $1,000 for non-compliance. You know, if we need to have somebody for the various areas that's on call, and you know, I mean, if I can put it right in my Airbnb contract that if somebody comes out here and issues a fine to my property, $1,000 for your misbehavior, then Airbnb is going to charge it to you. So we can certainly do that. It just seems like it's a matter of not having enforcement. It's only Monday to Friday from 8 to 4, whenever you have an officer available. I don't know why the police don't have time to do that as well. I mean, they can hand out speeding tickets. Sure, they can hand out $1,000 tickets. And I have to say, for all the talk of us, putting long-term rentals at risk, my partner owns 3 other properties actually in the town of Gibson's, which we've refitted 2 of the houses there for the purpose of renting them. We had one real crap tenant there and did $10,000 worth of damages, massive fire, all sorts of nasty stuff. And unfortunately, our BC rental tribunal does absolutely nothing to protect good owners and landlords. And you get a half a month damage deposit, and you get some piece of trash in there who's destroying your house, running drugs out of there and stuff like that, and you can't do a damn thing to get them out. So I'm sorry to say the odds are stacked against anybody wanting to have long-term rentals if that's the way you're going to treat owners.
Okay, thank you very much, Terrence. And just under 3 minutes. Directors, any questions for Terrence? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much for joining us this evening, Terrence.
Thank you for taking my.
Okay, next up we have DLT. And while we're waiting for DLT to join us in the room here, I'd like to remind anybody who's joined us via phone, if you would like to raise your hand to be added to the speakers list, you can use the *9 on your phone to raise your hand to be added to the speakers list. Okay? And with that, we will go over to DLT. If you can unmute yourself and state your full name and address for the record, and then you have 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you. My name is Diana Torrance. I am at 13239 Pinehaven Way at Whitaker's in Garden Bay. I'm sorry, I had a little trouble stating my full name and things on earlier communications, but here we are. I would like to express my vehement opposition to short-term rentals, basically based on exclusively negative experience from neighbors in our area not renting responsibly. I can appreciate there are people who act responsibly, but to be honest, up in here in Garden Bay, whether it be Daniel Point, Irvine's Landing, down here in the Whitaker's part of Garden Bay or Farringdon, I am yet to hear a positive anecdotal testimony to responsible owner behavior. And in our particular neighborhood, we've had the owners of a nearby house renting out to whoever, whenever, as long as they make money. They're not present. It's been pointed out to them they should be. They have not been. Then they said they would rent out to only people they know. That turned out not to be the case. The main problem, part of the problem is taking over the dock so that we can't even use the dock we're paying for. But the main problem is just the noise, day and night noise, taking over the area. No consideration for the fact that this is in fact some people's home, not just a holiday place. And I think for that kind of behavior, I think the earlier suggestion is a good one. Have a hotel chain, have a resort, have something where people like that can go and just be free and, you know, put the kids and having young children doesn't stop the problem either, because we've had families here with young children. They can't wait to get the kids to bed so they can go down on the dock and drink wine and make noise and do all these things and not have any consideration. So sadly, only negative experience. An earlier speaker also alluded to sort of the macroeconomic picture of housing availability on the coast. I would simply point out I lived in Europe for many years before I moved here to the Sunshine Coast. Airbnb and similar platforms have destroyed communities in cities around the world, Barcelona, Amsterdam, and also rural areas. And I would hope that the Sunshine Coast would have the foresight not to let that happen here. The income doesn't tend to stay here. There's not a feeling of community, and the money goes out. Meanwhile, the base price of real estate here goes up, and housing becomes less and less affordable to people here who actually need it, not just in the sunny summertime, but right through the year, 12 months a year. So my general attitude, and I know there are people who will disagree with me, but I really think short-term rentals out of homes and in residential areas should simply be banned, because even with the current sort of compromise rule of Airbnb with an owner present or somebody present, it's not enforced. It doesn't work. It should simply be banned. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much, Diane. Directors, any questions for Diane? Okay, thank you very much for joining us this evening, Diane. Next up, we have Randy Labonte or Labonte. Okay.
Okay.
And there we go. Hi, Randy. If you can state your full name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Lori. Randy and Pam Labonte, 9269 Truman Road in Half Moon Bay. So we ran a B&B on Vancouver Island. We've been here for 2 years, and we're watching a home being built that's going to have 8 bedrooms next door to us. So the concern is about accountability, and I understand the need and the benefit that comes from having people who do rentals and bed and breakfasts for the community. We did the same for Cowichan, where we lived, and it was wonderful. And we had great experiences, great people that come into our house. We were always present in our house because we were accountable, because we also profiled and we were involved in the community to enhance what was happening and what benefits came from people coming in as tourism. So we were tourism promoters. So that's the audience that we need to speak to. The people that buy a property to try to turn a profit, we don't want in our community. We didn't want them in Cowichan. We certainly don't want them here. And so the dilemma for you as directors is to try to figure out what is the right balance. And I really, really appreciate your leadership and the challenge that you have. I don't want to add to your burden, but I do want to say that what's important is to try to find that balance. So we had 2 suites that we rented. We had wonderful families and people that came to our property, but we also had a situation, I was present for it, and there was fires and there was extravagance, there was noise, there was fighting, there were drugs, all sorts of things, even though I was resident. Did I phone the police? No. It was my responsibility as a community member to ensure for the safety of everyone around me. That accountability is what you as directors need to embed in what happens here on the Sunshine Coast. Let's invite people to come and enjoy our wonderful space. But how do you, as directors, as a council, ensure that that is protected? And it's not about being able 24/7 to call a bylaw officer. I'm sorry. You know, the deterrence is not the response. It's how do you ethically ensure that the people that are doing this have everyone's interests at heart first, as opposed to their economic ones. So I'll leave it to you to decide if you have questions of me.
Okay, thank you, Randy and Pam. And I'm going to look to directors if you have any questions for our speaker. Okay, I don't have any there for you, Randy.
I appreciate what you do. I appreciate how you've worked through Zoom and everything else, but it was a pleasure to be a part of this first one.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Randy. And it's our pleasure to have you here and join us. And thank you for your patience as we get Zoom bombed and everything else and work our way through. Okay.
And you know, that's Chase from Paw Patrol.
Okay. Yeah, I see that. Thank you. Have a great day. Okay, next up on our list, we have Carol Wainwright. Carol, you're being moved into the Zoom. Carol, we see you, so if you can unmute yourself and introduce and your address, and then you have 3 minutes.
Hi, this is actually Carol's wife, Lynn Gardner. We both live at 1427 Tanager Place, Roberts Creek. Okay. And we've been here for just over 2 years, and we actually fell in love with the coast, having stayed at some wonderful Airbnbs up and down the coast, but mainly in Roberts Creek, and loved it so much. We sold up our house in Vancouver to move here and spent every last penny doing up a little building on our property to operate as our own short-term rental, which we've been doing for a year. And we have had nothing but good experiences in terms of all of the guests who have come. Airbnb give the hosts a really good opportunity to kind of pre-vet who comes to stay. So we only let people come who have got good reviews. We have really strict rules around quiet time, house rules, no parties. We have a maximum of 6 guests, even though our place could easily accommodate 10. We set it at 6. So we've had no complaints from the neighbors. Everyone's very supportive, and we feel that we pay a huge amount of taxes and a high cost of living here. And this just is one little revenue stream to help us stay here and enjoy the beauty that is the coast. Somebody did do some accounting on paper saying that, you know, this kind of place could reap you $32,000 a year. Yes, on paper it can. I can absolutely assure you in real terms it doesn't. 60% occupancy is not really achievable, to be honest, especially if you're being cautious and careful about who you invite. I do feel very, very sorry for all of those of you who have had a negative experience. And so I really do empathize with you and understand why you feel so frustrated. And I think it's really important that you as directors have to, people have mentioned balance and compromise. We do seem to have the gamut here from party houses with owners who are offsite and don't care, and just really straight up regular people who love the community and do care. And it really is a case of being fair to residents and to people who are trying to operate these as kind of a tertiary business. hotels are not always a great option for families wanting places to stay. Certainly whenever I go on holiday with my family, we always love to book an Airbnb wherever we are, because you have your own kitchen, you're not being forced to, you can just kind of relax. It's kind of a home away from home. Hotels don't always give you that opportunity. We may need another hotel on the coast, but I don't think it's an either or situation. Also to say that banning or reducing short-term rentals is not going to suddenly give a big increase in the long-term rental. If we were for some reason banned, we would sell and leave, and that would be a great shame.
Okay, directors, do you have any questions for our presenter?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Oh, thank you so much, and thank you for joining us this evening, and we appreciate your words.
Thank you.
Okay, now at the beginning of the meeting, we had said that we would go until about 8:30 and look at doing a break, but half an hour ago, we kind of got Zoom bombed, so my preference is to go for another half an hour, if that's okay with directors and staff, and then at 9 o'clock, we will take a break. I'm seeing some sad faces, but I've also got a couple of thumbs up. Is that okay with staff? As Yuli says, and IT, are you okay to go for another half an hour and then we'll take our break then?
We're all good here.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we're gonna keep on going through our speakers list. Next up, I have Jenny. Hello, Jenny, you've joined us. If you can unmute yourself and then state your name and address, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, sorry. Took me a second to figure it out. So my name is Jenny Stafford. My address is 8068 Alderwood Road. I'm building a house next to Cooper's Green. I'm opposed to the bylaw amendment as written, although I'm very sympathetic to the problematic situations that have been described. My husband and I have several long-term rentals. So we are long-term landlords. That's what we do. A few years ago, however, we bought a property across the street from where we're building, where our sort of family home, our dream house is being built. And we bought it to operate as a short-term rental because we could look after our guests attentively and responsibly. So we live across the street. This Airbnb is special because it accommodates 10 people. So that's what makes it so wonderful. It's not a party house. Our guests are typically families with multi-generations, routinely adult siblings and parents getting together with their kids for a long weekend. This is what I did with my family, so it's what I encourage in guests. I love the idea of families getting together. We've had a couple of different groups in their 60s who get together every year with college friends. They're not crazy party people. So the house is used also by our extended family, and local family friends use it occasionally. We invite friends to do it. And recently one of my neighbors used it. So it's the people in the neighborhood know us, and we're very present. So our listing also encourages quiet enjoyment of the space and explains that our neighbors live in the area and appreciate the peaceful atmosphere. That's why they come to the coast. Most of our neighbors are there's vacation homes nearby, but we emphasize that people come to their vacation homes because they want peace. We also live in the area and we value that peaceful atmosphere. So while I'm sympathetic to the problems that I'm hearing about, I feel the bylaw as written goes too far. What makes our property special is the fact that it can accommodate 2 families. And if you just imagine what it would be like if you're getting together with your siblings or parents and there's grandchildren, that you all get to wake up and have coffee and sit together. So And also living in my neighborhood, I'm very accessible to both the neighbors and the guests. I'm very involved in the neighborhood, and it's important to me to be a good neighbor and responsive to any situations that come up. That's it. Sorry, I just thought about that as I was listening to you all.
Okay. Terrific. Thanks, Jenny. Directors, any questions for Jenny before we let her go back to the other room? Directors, any questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much for joining us this evening, Jenny.
Thank you.
Okay, next up on our list, we have Hussein or Houston. And then once again, a reminder for any of our listeners, if you have, whether you've spoken for a first time or you haven't spoken yet, if you would like to get added to the speakers list, please raise your hand. We're just getting to the end of our first list. And once again, you can hit *9 to raise your hand on the phone, or just electronically raise your hand, please, any of the list of attendees. And with that, we have our next speaker. Is it Hussein?
Hi, this is Hussein's partners.
Okay.
So I'll be speaking for him, but it is Hussein, you're correct.
Okay, if you can state your name and your address, and then you have 3 minutes.
Yep, you bet. Hi, my name is Celine Rose. My address is 1041 Fairburn Road, Roberts Creek. I just wanted to make a case saying that I agree with our last speaker saying that the bylaw is maybe going too far in the other direction. We have been operating a short-term rental. We have a house, and we were very fortunate to get a house here on the coast. I grew up in Roberts Creek. I went to Roberts Creek Elementary and Elfie, and I grew up on the coast, so I'm a local and my family's all there, and we were very excited to be able to get a place. The housing market is already incredibly hard to break into. I think people's concerns are valid that it, if it gets worse, that's not great, but the fact is it's already very hard, especially for young people who are trying to make a living and ideally live in the community that they grew up in. So operating a short-term rental helps us to own a place, to barely just cover the mortgage. It's not a profit maker for us by any means. It's a way that we can have a house close to my parents and live in a community that we love and cherish. I think that having an on-site operator would be crucial to making sure that it's respectful and having control over guests. I think that's a great compromise to have someone living on-site. I like the idea that it doesn't have to be the owner. I get that some people can't live on their properties themselves. And I think that it would still be effective to have a family member or a friend that the owners trust and have given permission to live on the property and essentially run that B&B for them. I'd also like to make a point that Airbnb does take tax. It's a 10% tax that's collected by Airbnb that can be remitted to the SCRD. So that potentially could be a great amount of money coming from people running Airbnbs on the coast that could be used for the community and making things better and essentially going back to the people living here on the coast. Then, of course, other great points for having short-term rentals. It does give a place for families to get together and sort of enjoy a vacation together, whereas a hotel might not offer that. And I think maybe getting another hotel would be great. I like that it's not an either or option. It's maybe something that could be a combo. So that's basically all I have to say. Just wanted to make another case and sort of put another voice in there, and a voice of someone who's grown up on the Sunshine Coast and understands the community. And as a young couple that are trying to have a home, it definitely can make or break it for us. And if we weren't able to do any short-term rental, unfortunately, we probably wouldn't be able to afford the house and we would probably have to leave the community. Thank you for having me. Thanks for listening.
Okay, thank you so much for your comments. I'm going to look to directors for any questions. Okay, Director Hills.
Hi, thanks. The question, you said the bylaws went too far. Is that in terms of the number of bedrooms, the number of occupants? What do you mean by going too far?
Yes, thank you for clarifying. I actually had a question about that because I think that if that was my inclination, that it was going too far by limiting the amount of occupants in the bedroom. I think a really great case can be made for parents with young children. Often you want your child to be close to you, and just sort of depending on family dynamics, I think it would be micromanaging people to enforce 2 people per bedroom. Would you mind clarifying what exactly the law or the rule would be there?
It would be a maximum of 2 bedroom with 2 people per bedroom, correct, Yuli? If you can clarify.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I think this actually is a existing regulation in the existing bylaws. So the proposed bylaw does not change that. So it's not about how many people live in 1 bedroom. It's about the total number of people. So it doesn't matter how many people stay in 1 bedroom. So the regulation is about the total number, is based on the number of bedrooms times 2.
Okay, so just to clarify, that would mean that only 4 people could ever be in a rental.
Well, if the property permits 2 bedrooms to be used for short-term rental or B&B, yes, that's the total number will be 4.
Okay, yeah, then that would confirm where I feel like that is a bit restrictive and not understanding of different families. Say, you know, a family of 5, that might make it very difficult for that family of 5 to book a place to stay if they aren't allowed to have their 5th family member stay in a 2-bedroom place that would otherwise be very accommodating and fitting for them.
Okay. Thank you for that. And thank you for the further question, Director Hiltz. And thank you for joining us. And we will now move on to our next speaker, which is a phone number. We have 604-916-1761. Hello, you have joined us. Hi, we can hear you. If you could state your name and your address for the record, please, and then you have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay, thank you. My name's Christy McDonald, and I live at 161 Maple Road in Gibsons. I've managed and cleaned 6 short-term rentals over the last 3 years. It's my part-time job. I'm a full-time mom to 2 young kids. This job of managing Airbnbs allows me the flexibility to stay home with the kids, and I really appreciate this. And I also appreciate the positive impact tourism has on our community. I'm really sorry to those who have had bad experiences with short-term rentals. In the last 3 years, I have only actually had 1 bad experience with one of the houses I look after, and this was a noise complaint. I don't live on the property. However, I was made aware of the problem and then contacted the owners, and the problem was dealt with pretty quickly. They reached out to the people renting the space. I don't agree that somebody needs to be living on site, but I do think that there needs to be someone responsible for the property that lives on the coast. And yeah, that's about all I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much, Christy. Directors, any questions of Christy while we have her? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. You have like a minute and a half left if you had anything else you wanted to add. But
no, that's okay.
Okay.
I'll leave that time for other people.
Wonderful. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Christy. I'm just going to reiterate a message from our planner, Julie Clark. If you wish to speak tonight and have not spoken yet, this is a good time to raise your hand. Shortly, we will move into the second speakers list for those people who have already spoken once tonight. Okay, so we're going to be moving to our next speaker, and that's John Henderson. And we just need to move Christy out. There we go. And then we've got John Henderson. If you'd like to unmute yourself, and just getting everything reset here. Hello, John. John, we can't hear you. You're not muted, so I'm not sure what's.
Hang on.
Hello?
Can you hear me, Lori?
I can barely hear you, John. It's very, very low. Very, very low volume.
Lori, can you hear me now?
It's very difficult to hear you, John. It's very, very quiet.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see if that works. How about that? Is that better?
No, it's not.
1, 2, 3.
You're very, very hard to hear.
One of the problems with handling technology. Can you, if I speak up, if I yell, can you hear me?
It's very, very difficult. We can barely hear you. I worry whether or not we'll be able to get a transcript for our recording secretary is the only thing.
Well, I use Zoom 100 times a day, so curious. Can you hear me now?
It's still very, very quiet, John.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, you can. I'll go onto my computer, and maybe you can put me after the others first speakers, please.
Okay. Okay, so you're going to try a different device?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so John is going to try a different device. Are there any other speakers on the list that have not yet spoken that would like to speak for the first time? If you're on your phone, now's a good time to raise your hand, *9, or you can use the electronic raise hand function. Any?
We're going to start populating the second list, I think.
Okay. Oh, there's John too.
I will put John back in one moment.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks, Bryce. Okay, John, can you hear me? We have you on mute, right? You're just on mute at the moment.
I can hear you fine.
Oh, that is so much better.
Okay.
It was like you were whispering, and I've never heard you that quiet. It was very, very quiet, John. So
There we go. All right.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Okay.
So name and address, and please go ahead.
Thank you. John Henderson, 6137 Seashell Inlet Road. I'm speaking partly as a former owner of a B&B who didn't use the dreaded Airbnb organization, but did use another one called VRBO. We did 4 years of uncelebrated, I suppose, no problems with our B&B, and we had up to, I think we had up to 10 people. But I also speak as chair of the Seashell Chamber of Commerce, and we have received a great amount of input and feedback about this proposed amendment to the regulations. And I'm speaking tonight really on behalf of them. I think underlying all of this is an economic necessity for us to, as a coast, as the government, for all of you to do everything you can to encourage hotels and motels to locate here. I was at dinner tonight, and people were talking about how important the hotels are in Powell River. And of course, we are severely lacking in that. so in terms of what we have for tourists to come. And I think that's the part I would really emphasize, that the coast needs tourism. And tourism is much more than people coming for day trips. If they're not here for day trips, then of course they need a place to stay. And without hotels and substantial motels, the place that people go, and indeed, as many others have spoken about tonight, people want to stay in cute cottages, in small homes and the like. So I have to say, I think that I emphasize, I'm speaking on behalf of the chamber. We did talk to members. Our board is unanimous on this. We think the issue is much more about enforcement for what amounts to, in proportion, a few problems. And we don't make light of those problems at all. But the issue is not about trying to mandate or to restrict people from having this kind of opportunity, tourists and owners, but it is about ensuring that people abide by rules that support our great quality of life. You did get an email earlier, I believe, from one of our directors, Nick Farrar, and I just wanted to emphasize that. Nick talks about the importance to our local economy of the millions that tourism brings into the economy, and it benefits everybody on the coast. He goes on to say he's sympathetic to people who have party houses next door, but he believes there is a better investigation into how to solve this, which doesn't involve banning B&Bs outright.
Hey, John,
he talks about. Can I have
we've got you at the end
of
the
your chairship?
So
I won't call back if you let me have 20 seconds.
Well, I can also ask the directors if they have any questions for you, and then also if you've submitted your comments in writing, and then directors, any questions? You can have, if you'd like to have, Director Toth?
Yeah, John, what was the rest of what you wanted to say?
All right, I'll take that as a question. Nick Ferrara, who's founder of Brickers, goes on to say, my business sees 80% of our income from tourists, and probably 80% of those tourists stay in B&Bs and short-term rentals. So I think you need to keep that in mind, that in your deliberations about what is best for the coast, here's a business, and okay, I accept it's one, but I think he is representative of many businesses, indeed many members of the chamber, who would say we need tourism, and tourism is dependent, for now at least, on short-term rentals. So I encourage you to focus more on enforcement for the unfortunate problems that do exist. Some are close to where I live, but please focus on enforcement rather than regulation to restrict all of short-term rentals. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, John. Director Lee, you have a question?
Yes, I was wondering, John, if you could just explain if you're talking about on-site or off-site operators, are you suggesting that off-site operators are okay as long as we have the necessary enforcement?
Yes, I mean, there are many examples of this where whether you own an apartment in Vancouver or something else, we do need local access. If somebody in a property near me is having a loud party, I want to be able to call the government. The enforcement people. But if it's something about the lawn hasn't been cut or the whatever, there's some problem, it needs to be local management. I can tell you, we've had some of our members say there's no way that people would stay in a home where they know that the owner is living in the guest cottage or whatever. I think we need to back off from feeling like we have to find one size fits all. And there are some professional managers on the coast, I understand, who, you know, if you call them at 11 o'clock at night because of a problem, they're able to fix it. And I think that's what you need. The owners, heck, if a problem happened in a place that I owned and you called me at 11 o'clock to fix it, chances are I won't be able to. I don't have that skill. But if it's a professional management company, then that's what they're hired for. So I would support professional management, but I really don't believe, and I can speak on this, our members do not believe it should be owner-occupied premises.
Okay, directors, any further questions for Mr. Henderson? Okay, thank you very much for your submission.
I'm not in the Lighthouse Pub right now. I want to emphasize that.
Okay, thank you, John. So we're just ending we have another first-time speaker up on the list. I see we have Krista Wolin. While Krista is getting moved into our gallery here, I'd just like to remind anybody else who is listening in, if you haven't spoken yet for the first time, now's a really good time to raise your hand. Or if you have already spoken once and wish to speak again, please raise your hand and staff will add you onto the list. We've already got a list started for second-time speakers. I see a few speakers who haven't spoken yet have raised their hands. And with that, we've got Krista here with us in the gallery now. And Krista, I see you've unmuted. If you could state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay. My name is Krista Wallen. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, can hear you perfectly, Krista.
Okay, I wasn't planning on speaking, so I'm not going to put on my video. My name is Krista Wallen. I live in Seashelt at 5112 Anna Road. A little background, I grew up on the Sunshine Coast in Roberts Creek. I work as a real estate agent on the coast now. I lived off coast for a number of years and moved back with my family. So this matter, I feel like there's a real balance that we need to strike and between, you know, maintaining or trying to get back to some more affordable housing on the Sunshine Coast. But I also feel like tourism and ecotourism are a real opportunity on the Sunshine Coast as well. And we've only just begun exploring that economic opportunity. And I feel like that kind of spreads into a number of different avenues. For example, recently the Clack Creek logging and other logging that's proposed, those are, I realize, not part of what we're talking about here, but those are eco-tourist opportunities that we're removing from the coast. And I feel like the short-term rental plays into that because it's sort of, you know, we have this amazing opportunity to have people come here and have these experiences, but they need a place to stay. And we don't have any hotels. You know, the few times that I've had clients stay at hotels, their experience hasn't been that positive because we just don't have a sort of sophisticated accommodation on the coast besides the painted boat and the rock water, which can be cost prohibitive for a lot of people. So I feel like we could really be losing out on a great opportunity. We've seen the rise in restaurants. We have great retail stores. We have great, you know, the kayak place, tons of things that since I was a kid here, it's so nice to be able to go out, and that's becoming more of the culture here. And I really feel that Airbnb or, you know, the similar platform, short-term rental, removing the opportunity for that completely will really have a negative impact in a lot of different areas on our coast, and for some of the stuff that the locals enjoy as well. I guess the last thing, okay, I wrote some notes here. I also think there's an economic opportunity for people to take on an operator role. There's somebody whose name I am not remembering right now, but she used to do that kind of thing, and sort of be a host company or whatever, and that is a great opportunity for people who are self-starters to be able to support operators who aren't on site. I myself don't like seeing operators when I go and stay at Airbnbs or short-term rentals in other places. I just kind of want to go in, do my thing.
Krista?
Lori, yeah?
Yes, we're at the end of your 3
Okay.
minutes.
Okay.
But I'll ask the directors if they have any questions for you.
Yeah. Okay.
And you're always welcome to add yourself back onto the speakers list as well if you'd like to speak for a second time.
Okay. No, I think that's about it. Yep.
And you're welcome if you'd like to submit anything in writing. You have until the end of this meeting and to submit it by email to planning.department@scrd.ca.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, there is actually one more thing, is just recognizing that managing the administration of this, I realize is probably a big cost to taxpayers, and so I'll put that in writing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Krista, for joining us this evening. Okay, so we are at just after 9 o'clock, but we have 2 more speakers for the first time. And I think we're okay to do our next 2 first-time speakers. And then we'll have a break after that and go to our second-time speakers. Okay. I'm sorry, Donna, you can, but we next up on our list, we have Donna M. And Donna, we see you in our panelist room.
Okay.
Okay, and so if you can, oh, there you are.
There I am.
If you can state your name and address, and then you have 3 minutes.
Sure. I wasn't really planning on speaking tonight, but I've been listening to the whole meeting. My name's Donna McClure, and I live at 13568 Lee Road, up in the Daniel Point area of Pender Harbor. And I moved here 11 years ago so that I could live in a very quiet rural setting. And for the first 7-8 years, it was really, really great, and I became part of the community and sort of joined in, and it was awesome. And then the house right beside me, which is very, very close to me, sold to people who bought it to run an Airbnb hotel, and they were not honest about that when they first moved in. They told me that they were not going to rent it out, but it became pretty clear pretty quickly that that's all they were doing, and the average stay was 2 or 3 nights, and they were advertising it on Airbnb as a place that was sort of a little cabin in the woods, but in actual fact, it was a cottage in a little cluster of houses, and my house is right beside it, really, really close. Like I look right down on the deck, and basically, Airbnb basically ruined my life for 18 months, and I was going to move. I was going to sell my place and move, and it wasn't really that there was noise. I did have problems with parking. I had people stealing firewood. I had people siphon gas out of my car. People relying on me to be the tour guide. I had somebody ring my doorbell at 8:30 in the morning after a night shift in the emergency department in Seashelt when I needed to sleep, and to ask me where there was a really good swimming beach. And so there wasn't anybody on site, and the people that came to stay, the owners, claimed that they were going to vet the people and that they were going to price it really high so that they'd have high-end renters. But they basically priced it to keep it full all the time. And the average stay was 2 or 3 nights. The housekeeper came, smoked cigarettes half the time, and suntanned herself on the deck. And her cigarette smoke drifted in through my windows, and she left her dog in the car and barking at me when I came out. And basically the thing just wrecked my life. And I was going to sell and move. But they ended up, we actually did, after several incidents where guests stole firewood, we complained to the bylaw officer, and the bylaw officer was actually quite good. And he was fairly persistent with them. And he told them that they couldn't, like, you just can't run a hotel beside somebody's house that is just living in a residential area. And so it was a full-time hotel. And so I don't think that should be allowed. I think that if you're going to run an Airbnb, you should have to check if it's going to bother the neighbors. If it's within 500 meters of another house, maybe you shouldn't be able to do it. Maybe if your place is off by itself and it's not bothering anybody, great. But if it's wrecking the lives of your neighbors, you just shouldn't be able to do that in a residential area. It was a commercial operation. So anyway, they bailed out because the bylaw officer did bug them quite a bit. Maybe they fined them, but the fines were nothing compared with what they were making. And so anyway, the place sold, and now I have great neighbors who live here, and they're not renting it out. So my life got way better once there wasn't an Airbnb beside me. But if that happens again, I'll sell and move off the Sunshine Coast.
Okay. Thank you, Donna. I'm sorry, we went over your 3 minutes there. I didn't, but you were still speaking. I didn't want to jump on you too much. But I will ask the directors if you have any questions for Donna.
If anyone would like to read my story, I have a story on Medium, Donna McClure on Medium, that describes my experience.
Okay, and you're welcome to submit that to planning.department@scrd.ca before the end of this meeting. Okay, okay, and Director Hiltz, you had a question?
Yes. Could you tell me how many bedrooms and guests were using the neighbor?
It's one of the small Daniel Point cottages, the Stonewater cottages, and I believe they have 2 bedrooms. Mine has 4 bedrooms, but most of them, the one beside me had 2 bedrooms. And it wasn't that they had a whole lot of people or that was noise. The people that came to stay they weren't expecting me to be there. And they made it very clear that they were unhappy that I was there. And I was just living on my property. I felt like a prisoner in my own home.
Okay, Director Hiltz, does that answer your question? Okay, directors, any other questions for Donna before we let her go? Nope. Okay, thank you very much, Donna, for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Next up on our list, we have Ian Wynn. And Ian is the last of the first-time speakers right now. So after Ian is done speaking, we will be going to a short break. So we have Ian has joined us here in the Zoom gallery, the Zoom boardroom, as it were, for the public hearing. Mr. Wynn, hello, how are you?
Good, and so nice to be joining in this first public hearing via Zoom. I've never seen so many directors at a public hearing before. So I'll get quickly to the point because I see my time is just about going to start.
Yeah, well, name and address, please.
Yeah, sure. Ian Wynn, 1990 Thornborough Road, and that's in Williamson's Landing, which is Area F. I speak tonight. I wasn't planning on it, but I've been listening, and I just want to talk to the broader issue of tourism and my opposition to this bylaw amendment, because it has now precluded the lawful operation of any short-term rental accommodation by an off-site owner. So, I guess ultimately we got to realize that we've got a very robust and thriving tourism industry here on the Sunshine Coast. And in the absence of big hotels, then the accommodation needs are met by B&Bs and short-term rentals. And so that, and we've got to also recognize that we're probably in the neighborhood of 1,000, maybe even 2,000 B&Bs and short-term rental accommodations right now. And so with the current bylaw, then most of the majority of those are currently non-conforming short-term rental accommodations. I'm the owner operator of a B&B, a traditional B&B. I live on site, no complaints, for over well over 10 years. So, but there are some, and we've heard of them tonight, where there are a lot of problems. So what this bylaw amendment does, though, is it doesn't recognize the short-term rental accommodation business model, and it does very little to it curtails the growth of this business activity. So, but most people don't want to operate in a illegal business. So, it's important that we recognize this economic driver and that we need to legitimize it, and we need to deal with the fact that the bylaw amendment is regressive because of the number of people that it allows per room, and not children in the room with the parents. So I'm just going to ask that the board to please reconsider that legitimizing option of a temporary use permit for an off-site owned STRA, and along with the further investigation to consider the implementation of a business licensing program within the regional district. It's a long process. The TUP looks after it for a short period of time, and then a business licensing model could take over and legitimize what happens now with thousands of accommodations on the Sunshine Coast. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ian. Directors, any questions for Mr. Wynn? Okay, Ian, I don't see any questions from our directors. Once again, it's a pleasure to have a former director join us and on this historic night of the electronic public hearing. Thank you so much for your words. And you're also the last of our first-time speakers. So
thank you very much.
Okay, have a lovely evening with Ian. Okay, so with that, we've reached the end of our first-time speakers. We are going to take a short break and recess and come back here at, is 8 minutes, 9:20, okay for everyone? Okay, so I'm going to see everybody back here at 9:20, and thank you, and we'll be right back. Okay, staff, are you guys all doing okay there?
Yes, we're okay. Thank you.
Okay, great.
And we're all good here. We'll queue up the second list.
Okay, wonderful. I hope that I've given you enough time to have a break as well. So, okay, I'm just going to step away from my screen for a few minutes. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Good? Good.
Mhm.
Everybody's had a stretch. Feel like doing, you just stretch like that and it's like YMCA. Okay, so we are at 9:21. Our IT department, how you doing there, Bryce?
We're all ready to go here.
Okay. All right. Now, I thought I saw a hand up from somebody who hadn't spoken yet, just as we were going to break. That was Gail Sars.
Yeah, we could bring those two. We actually have two. We could bring them up first before the other list, if you like.
Yes, because it's because anybody who hasn't spoken yet should they get put on they get put priority, correct?
Understood.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so we will resume, and I will look to our list, and we have Gail Sawyers. And then just once again, while we're moving Gail into our room here, if you are calling in by phone, it is *9 to raise your hand to get put on the speakers list. If you are within the list of attendees and you would like to be put on the speakers list, please raise your hand. We have Gail is just joining us right now, and we're on the list of people speaking for the first time. And Gail, can you hear us?
Yeah, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. So
Okay.
if you could state your name and address, and then you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Gail Sars, and I live at 8046 Red Roofs Road. And thank you for the opportunity to speak. I actually wasn't going to speak tonight, but after listening to many of the other speakers, I really felt the need to make my voice heard. I do support the proposed bylaws. I support the proposed changes to the bylaws. I feel we live in communities, not commercial areas. And short-term rentals without these restrictions in place, I feel are not appropriate in residential areas. I think we all know that communities around the world are grappling with the whole short-term rental phenomenon. It has the short-term rentals really do have the ability to destroy communities. And I applaud the board for putting forth these changes, because I really strongly feel that if we don't address the potential impacts that short-term rentals have, we really risk losing our community feel, and we risk losing a lot of what we love about the coast. I recognize that tourism is important, certainly, but I think it's equally important that we preserve our communities. That's just what I wanted to say, and I do support the changes to the bylaws. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Gail, for speaking this evening. Directors, do you have any questions of Gail? No. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions from our directors. Gail, you do have a few more moments if you wanted to close off with anything else. Otherwise, our staff will move you back into our gallery.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Gail. Have a lovely evening. Thank you for joining us this evening. And we have one more first-time speaker, and that will be Archie McLean. Okay, so Archie is just joining us within the gallery, or within our panelist Zoom right now. Hi, Archie, how are you?
Great, how are you guys doing?
Good. Okay, so we need your name and address, and you have 3 minutes. So go ahead when you're ready.
All right, Archie McLean is my name, and I live at 6375 Oracle Road in Sechelt. And you got a tough battle in front of you, but try and look at it right in the middle from both sides. You got some great operators, you got some bad operators, you got some neighbors that are very, very upset, but you also have some great neighbors that enjoy what is happening. So if you implement, don't make any more bylaws or rules, because that's just, it's just getting too stressful for people. Make a 3-strike rule for these close neighbors. Okay, if a B&B is not operating the way they should be, and have a phone number for somebody, the neighbors that can phone, they can phone to the SCRD. That way you don't need phone the bylaw officer. Okay, 3 strikes, then that B&B or Airbnb, whatever, short-term rental, however it is, if they get 3 strikes, they lose their permission to have their license. You can give licenses to everybody, okay? Charge a nominal fee to have the bylaw officer on standby, but you wouldn't need anybody patrolling. The neighbors could do it. They could do it incognito. They wouldn't need to be known. They could just make a phone call. The next day, it would be done. That way, the good operators can operate. The bad operators will get off the list, and you won't have harmony, but you'll have better than making so many rules that everybody's going to be breaking the rules, and you're going to have nothing. You'll never have a big hotel here, by the way, not in the next few years. As you can see, we've tried to get some big hotel chains coming here, and they just say, no, we're not interested. So that's not going to happen right away, but the B&Bs are picking up the slack, the Airbnbs and short-term rental for the tourism. It's a great thing that we've got going here. Just kind of weed out the bad apples and let the neighbors do it. Let the neighbors report those bad apples, and you guys then take the reins and dealing one-to-one instead of having to deal with everybody all at the same time. That might help. Anyway, that's my 2 bits.
Thank you, Archie. Directors, do you have any questions for Archie? Or sorry, I should say Mr. McLean.
Thank you.
Directors, any questions for our speaker? Nope, I'm not seeing any. So I guess with that, we're any parting comments, and then we'll release you back to the attendees lounge.
To the waiting room. Thank you very much, you guys. You're doing a great job, and I appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much, Archie. Have a good evening.
All right,
thank you
bye-bye.
for joining us. Okay. So with that, I have no more notification of first-time speakers.
We actually do have one last one who just stuck her hand up.
Excellent.
We have
All right.
Fran Miller coming now.
Okay, Fran. Great. Okay, so we have Fran Miller coming into our waiting room. And we see her popping up there. And there is Fran. We see you. Can you hear us?
I can. I can hear you. I've been listening.
Perfect. Okay, so name and address, and you have 3 minutes, Fran.
Okay, my name is Fran Miller. I live at 676 Hillcrest Avenue in Gibsons. I'm a realtor now, but before I had a real estate business, I did vacation property management for years on the Sunshine Coast. And I have to say that for the most part, I had 17 properties and I managed them, and it was fantastic. The only time I ever had a problem was with one client, and they were living under it. It was a place that did have the owners of the place living above the place that we were renting out. But I just wanted to say that I believe that the Sunshine Coast should really not be limiting the people that can come and stay here, because it is totally part of our project. I mean, we really have people who want to rent out their places, and I think the people that come and stay here, they go and they spend money and they enjoy the coast, and I just really cannot believe that this is a detriment to the coast. Sorry, I wasn't expecting to be able to speak. I thought I had to have booked it in advance, so I'm not prepared. I just booked it in this last seconds. But anyway, I can't believe that you guys are actually considering limiting tourism on the coast here. So I think that I agree with the people who say, like, 3 strikes you're out or whatever. But to say no to everybody in advance, I just can't believe it. I just don't understand it. So anyway, that's my 2 bits.
Great. Thank you, Fran. Directors, do you have any questions for Ms. Miller? Not seeing anyone. Fran, and I'm sorry, I should do the same thing. Ms. Miller, would you like to add anything in the last few seconds? Oh, sorry, I have a question from Director Hiltz.
Okay.
Sure. Of the 17 properties, sizes of the places, number of rooms, number of bedrooms, number of guests, what would have been the range?
You know what? I did that for 3 years. 3 years, well, more than 3 years, but solely for the vacation management for 3 years. And they were all between 2 bedrooms and 5 bedrooms. And they were all single family dwellings, except for the the one that was like underneath somebody else's house. So 5 bedrooms was the maximum. And I mean, and I do say that this was a couple of years ago, so it wasn't as common, but the people, like, I have to say, like, they cleaned up after themselves. They put everything back, and if they broke a glass, they called me and apologized. And it was just, and for the neighbors, the people who are doing vacation rentals, they keep their place in good shape. I mean, you could have a bad rental or a bad owner who doesn't take care of their place, but these people who are doing vacation rentals, they're taking care of their places. They're, for the most part, the good ones, they're taking care of their places. The rooms are, the houses are taken care of, the yards are coiffed. I mean, they are taking care of their homes. And I think it would be worse to have a bad owner or a bad rental tenant. I don't mean to just say, because people give tenants a bad rap, but sometimes you can have an owner that's not taking care of their place. But if somebody's vacation renting their home, they usually almost always take care of the yard. They make sure everything's taken care of. I think penalize the people who are not screening their guests. Like, that's my point. Like, I would say, don't rent this if you want to party, because this is a quiet neighborhood. You will be called out and you will be shut down. So I think shut down the people who are doing the wrong thing, but don't shut down everybody just because of a couple of bad apples.
Okay, thanks, Fran. Directors, any other questions? No. Okay, staff will move you back. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. It was good to see you.
You too.
Okay. All right. I'm just
We have another
okay.
hand that just came up, Kirsty. So
Oh, yep. Okay. Yep. So we have Kirsty. Staff is just moving. There we go. So we have another first-time speaker. Kirsty, can you hear me? There you are. Okay. You're hi, Kirsty. So you're going to, if you can state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
My address, Kirsty Tozak, and I'm 5004 Bay Road in Davis Bay, Sechelt. I'm a realtor on the coast, and very passionate about the home rentals. I'm sorry, I just joined in now, so I hope I don't repeat myself, but I've been finding with the housing market the way it is right now, we really desperately need people to be able to have an extra income for their home. I did hear the end of Fran, who said that they do keep their properties in good condition. I have a lot of people that have offered to help with District of Sechelt, the SCRD, the town of Gibsons, to be able to work with the neighborhoods, work with the neighbors, and help the homeowner themselves be able to manage it in a very peaceful manner. I do understand the complaints that have been out there, and I too wouldn't want that beside me in my residential neighborhood. But to be able to help homeowners, be able to afford and keep the tourism up, and offer, it's quite social when you go to somebody's house to stay there as a holiday rental. I think it's absolutely necessary that we need it, and it's totally fine if it's governed by either a company or someone that can be the go-between with the neighbor, the person who's running it, and whatever district. So I don't know if that's different than anything that's already been said, but it would be a shame to lose any kind of holiday rentals. And it's very hard for people on the coast to already afford a home. And to have all these off-coast people coming over, this would be a way a lot of my clients can afford a home if there is some sort of rental potential in their home.
Okay. Terrific. Thank you. Directors, do you have any questions for our presenter or for our speaker? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands up, Kirsty. So if you have just under a minute left, if you had anything else you wanted to say.
Not at the moment. No, that's good.
Okay, great. And until the end of this meeting, you can always email planning.department@scrd.ca as well, if you had any other written submissions for until the meeting is complete. So, okay, excellent. Okay, so that was the last of our first-time speakers. So I'm going to officially call a second time for further submissions, and we will start in on our list of speakers who have not, or who have already spoken once. And the first one we have here is John Stanway. And John is getting moved into our room here, into our Zoom room. Okay, we see that John has joined us. And John, can you hear us?
I can, Lori.
Okay, perfect. Okay, Mr. Stanway, you have three more minutes, so go ahead.
Okay, first, when I first spoke, you failed to ask any of the councillors if they had any questions.
Yes, my apologies.
No, that's okay. No worries. Secondly, I applaud John Henderson. I really appreciated his input. Thirdly, I've been on the coast since 1963. Probably a lot longer than anybody that's on the council here. And not that that deserves any merit, but I've seen a lot of changes on the Sunshine Coast over the years. And I have a vested interest in the short-term rentals. And I would really like to see enforcement and to change the number of bedrooms from 2 to 5. Secondly, the most important factor in this is please, do not forget about what's gone on with this COVID thing. And everybody's going to be hurting. We need the income. We need the people to come here and spend their tourism dollars. To shut this down, you're doing a very, it's a travesty to shut this down. It really is. Thirdly, Lori, and this is directed at you, I had one of your clients call me wanting to rent my short-term rental, which has 5 bedrooms, because they're looking for real estate on the Sunshine Coast, and apparently you had referred them to us for this fellow and his family. And I told him, I said, sorry, I can't, because there's a meeting. I have to find out what's going on with it, and I denied his request. I forget the guy's name now, but just the same, he named you as a realtor that recommended him to our property. Thirdly, with Mr. Hiltz, which I have a real problem with, the fact that I was going to vote for Brackett in the last election. And after buying this farm up on Chamberlain Road, I gave a courtesy to my neighbor, and I spoke with him for 45 minutes, Mark Hiltz. And he was all about championing our cause, and he understood the benefits of a 5-bedroom short-term rental. And again, we've been doing this for many years, not a complaint. We brought tremendous people that come and enjoy the coast, 3-4 families that stay in, no partying, nothing. We look at I insist on their Facebook page. I do all the research before they come to the coast, and we've got people from all over the world that have been fantastic. And I found a receipt one time in the house that a guy left behind that was for $1,600 at a clothing store in Gibson's. $1,600. Who spends that on the Sunshine Coast? And I would like some kind of rebuttal from both yourself and Mr. Hiltz on could you explain yourselves? Why would you recommend somebody to use a short-term rental that is 5 bedrooms and then have a bylaw that is outlawing them?
Okay.
Please. Oh, and one more thing, please. This spyware that is going to cost taxpayers, I understand, $15,000 to spy on somebody that's doing crime-free. Oh, by the way, our next door neighbor, Mark Hiltz, and myself, is a drug operation. There's there's growing a big grow-op where there's music going all night long, and so on and so forth. And when I asked him about that, he said, "Well, it's not his concern; it's the police or whatever." And I just feel like we're being really, really persecuted for doing a good thing for the Sunshine Coast.
Okay.
Please address my concerns, please.
Okay. Well, Mr. Stanway, I can't address your concerns in regards to my personal real estate business because that is a breach of client confidentiality, and I'm not able to do anything in that sense. I will look to the rest of the directors if you have any further questions for Mr. Stanway.
No. Can I ask you then? So you did not refer somebody to us?
Excuse me, I'm going to step in here. This is a public hearing, and at a public hearing, we hear from the participants. It's your opportunity to speak to us. We are not in debate. So if the directors have any questions, they can ask questions. Otherwise, we will put you back into the gallery. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Seegers. And directors, do you have any questions for Mr. Stanway? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions, Mr. Stanway. If you'd like to speak for a third time, please feel free to put your hand up in the gallery. Staff will be moving you back there. Next up on our list, we have Samantha Stanway.
Hi guys, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Samantha. Once again, we'll need you to say your name and your address, and you have 3 more minutes.
Fantastic. Samantha Stanway, 981 Chamberlain Road, Gibsons. Just want to restate this one more time because it seems so obvious from listening to everybody's stories all night. Enforce. Penalize the bad renters, full stop. I don't think anybody here is advocating a free-for-all where you can rent your house out to partiers. We're advocating bringing your A game, being good at your job. The operators John Henderson spoke of who answer texts at 11 a.m., that's us. That's what we do. We love it. And we should also note it's not rocket science to rent your home without getting complaints. Airbnb has a great interface that shows us as renters what the individual track records are. We screen thoroughly, we have a questionnaire. We even add them on social media to see if they had pictures of themselves chugging Grey Goose out of the bottle or, whatever. But I do feel for the people who've had bad experiences with rentals in their neighborhoods. Unfortunately, in this game, you don't hear about the good ones like us because we're silent. When everything's going right, you don't hear anything. So to the note about big hotels coming here, when I travel, I love renting big houses with my family and cooking our own food and sometimes actually meeting the neighbors. That said, bring on the big hotels because people who want what we're selling will still line up for it. You can't get that at a big hotel. Another solution that nobody's actually presented yet is maybe we look at site-specific exemptions to the bedroom rule based on natural features of the property, likelihood to offend. Like, why not have a set of criteria like, is it in a remote location? Have you had complaints before? Did you give the right of first refusal to long-term tenants? Now, maybe look at these things. Instead of throwing people trying to run a business under the bus, we should look at maybe real-life solutions to the housing crisis. I know that it sounds attractive to demonize people with big houses and they're renting them out. But maybe there's some real workable solutions like cute low rises or like eco-friendly housing projects, real workable commitments from the government, because leaving a bunch of big houses empty doesn't help anybody.
Okay, directors, do you have any questions for Samantha? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions, Samantha. You have just under a minute if you wanted to add anything.
I kind of was curious, like, what the genesis of this all was. Like, how many complaints have you guys had from people about short-term rentals? And does the SCRD bylaw officer differentiate complaints from short-term rentals versus just people who are being jerks in houses that they're renting long-term?
Now, for that information, that's best to be sent to staff. We don't have those stats on us right now. So that is certainly a question that you can put to our bylaw staff or planning department and for follow-up after.
Okay, because one thing I have noticed is we did have some long-term clients, and we always try to give right of first refusal to local workers. But the only time that we have had issues with neighbors texting us about noise is from long-term renters. So I'm just hoping that there is a differentiation so we don't all get painted with the same brush. There's enough bad renters out there, short-term and long-term, wrecking our game. I'm just saying, enforce. Don't make new laws, just enforce the ones that we already have.
Okay, great. Thank you, Samantha. And once again, if you'd like to speak again, you're certainly welcome to go back in the queue and put your hand back up. I will remind everyone that as we are in a public hearing, please keep your comments related to the zoning amendment bylaws that we have, that we are for the purpose of this public hearing. With that, I am going to go to the next speaker on our list. We have Rola Prietel.
Hi.
Hi, Rola. If you can, once again, for the record, name and address, and you have 3 more minutes.
Rola Prieto, 32541 Beach Ave. And I just wanted to say that I am so pleased that the Chamber of Commerce attended tonight. I spoke to so many business owners, one of them, Dave from the Gumboot, who would have loved to be here today, but he's at his small business day and night, especially post-COVID. He's alone tonight at the restaurant, but he said that he sent a letter to you guys, to planning department. Same with a few pub owners I spoke with who completely oppose this proposed bylaw because it'll just annihilate their businesses completely. But before I finish at the first time I spoke, I was gonna also say that if my family cannot rent out our home, and again, we're the people who rent out. I have so many guidelines. I would love to share the guidelines with you guys in case you do end up implementing fees, permits of some sort with guidelines, that if we cannot rent out this home when we're not here, we would not rent it all year long and then not get to spend time here. We would just have to sell it and probably take a huge loss because real estate has gone down so much since we've purchased it. And it would probably just sit here empty, just like it would be, basically would be all going backwards as a community here on the coast. Just like Terrence said, yearly tenants are certainly more likely to abuse a place and take it for granted than the number of people, than the people who come in for vacationers. The number of people I know who cannot evict bad tenants in Gibsons and Sechelt is astounding. I'm sure you have those cases as well. Vacation renters by majority are people like you and me who travel, and we treat the homes better than our own. We get also Airbnb and VRBO, they give ratings to people, and I see it. If it's not a 5 rating, I'm not accepting those people. I rent my place for more than that person, Peter Sugden said. Apparently people can make over 30 per year, 30 grand per year. I rent it for more than what he said per night, and I don't even come close to that. And something about that the real estate market would increase if we do this. This is no relation whatsoever. This is wrong information. Having a caretaker in-house would be impossible for us. It would, but can it mean that they can live really close and they could be called at any time? Maybe you can please consider that, and please reconsider the temporary use permit, because I would love to give some money, like a fee, and that would be a win-win situation, because then you guys can have the funds to enforce more laws. I'm happy to work with you in putting together those guidelines. I'll provide free seminars to people to teach them how to choose appropriate guests. One of them is also a hefty damage deposit. Like it says right on when I get them to read my rules, that complaints are considered damage. And I have so many more of those that I'd love to also share with you, just to put it out there in case you can, let's get permits.
Okay, Rola, would you be able to you're always welcome to email your guidelines as part of a written submission to the planning department. So planning.department@scrd.ca.
Yeah.
Planning.department@scrd.ca. I've said it so many times. Every time I say it, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. Directors, do you have any questions for Ms. Prietel? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so our staff will put you back into the gallery. And if you'd like to speak again, please ensure that you do raise your hand. I'm going to look at the next person on our list. Okay, so the next person we have on our list is the 7401006. If you can state your name and your address, please, and then you have 3 minutes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, my name's Dave, and I
full name, please.
Gibson's.
Sorry, Dave, can you say? Dave, I'm sorry, I keep on speaking over top of you. Can you say your full name and address? And then I'll just, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just joining the meeting late here.
Okay. Yeah, and we have you on the, you had put your hand up to be on the speakers list?
I was just wondering if you guys have covered having a caretaker on the property or not yet.
You're welcome to speak to anything you'd like to, Dave. It's not a debate right now. What it is for a public hearing is you have 3 minutes to speak about your views and opinions on the bylaw amendments that we have put forward. And then you can always speak again. But right now we can, as I said, state your name, full name, and address, and you have 3 minutes to state whatever you'd like. Okay, we lost Dave. And so Dave had asked about, he had a point about the caretakers, and so I guess with that, next up on our list, we have Randy Labonte once again.
Looks like he actually has departed.
Okay. Once again, everyone, remember to, if you do want to submit a written submission, it goes to planning.department@scrd.ca. It needs to arrive before we close this meeting. And so next up on our list, we have Terrence. Hello, Terrence. We see you there. If you can unmute yourself, and once again, for the record, state your name, your full name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Again, Terrence Rigger, 1834 Ocean Beach, Esplanade. So I just want to make sure some points get reiterated here and perhaps tuned up a little bit, because yeah, there are some genuine concerns. If I had a party house next door to me, I'd be very upset. And to that point, we do need enforcement, and we need real-time enforcement. And if there really are so many problems, then it should be self-sustainable. I mean, if you've got $1,000 whack coming out, you give me $1,000 a night, I'll go around, hand out tickets, and I'll even keep my phone on till the wee hours of the morning. I think Samantha Stanway's question prior about the number and the nature of complaints of long-term versus short-term should be known to this committee, and it needs to inform the outcome. So hopefully, if you guys don't know that information, this, I'm not saying you don't, like, you just mentioned that you didn't have it available yet this time, but hopefully that becomes available to you. I think the need for responsible owners is respected and recognized, and not at at the expense of just a few problem properties. So sure, if there's some problem properties, then we need to smack those down, absolutely. But we also need to respect the rights of the people who aren't the problems. We need flexible rules to accommodate the surrogate or the designated person as a property manager. If if I rent my Airbnb out, then I usually I go off property. So it does make me an absentee landlord. Part of the attraction of the Sunshine Coast, though, is the individual properties. Many people don't want to stay in a motel in the main thoroughfare and then drive to some same crowded park as others. So if you take away that ability for people to enjoy being immersed, staying at a beautiful place, rural, as opposed to stuck on a hotel with all the traffic pounding past you there on Main Street, Gibsons. B&B is a good economic alternative to people who want to travel as a family and a group, as well as assisting homeowners with that financial benefit. Many of us have purchased our property, did so with the existing rules, so we shouldn't be penalized because new rules are brought in because of some bad apples. Punish the troublemakers, not the good citizens, as I say over and over again. And when I travel, I prefer to support the small business persons, not the large corporate hotels that are very overpriced and sterile. And I find that's a common thread of people. They like to travel with their family, be able to get up and cook and enjoy meals together and have a much nicer experience than staying at, at some hotel.
Thank you, Terrence. Directors, any questions for Terrence? Okay. Thank you for sticking around, Terrence, for that second chance to speak. We still will have one more opportunity as well. And with that, we will move through our list. I believe Kathy McClellan has not yet had an opportunity to speak. And we're just
Kathy
waiting
McClellan
to move Kathy
appears
into our, or is she still on the?
Kathy McClellan appears to have departed as well. I don't see her on the list anymore.
Okay. And so have we reached the end of the second time speakers list?
We have, unless you want to make one last call to see if there's anyone who wants to speak.
Okay. So we will, I'm just going to put a call out there for anyone who would like to, who has not yet either spoken for a first or a second time. I see we have Ian Wynn has put his hand up. And just to call out to anybody else and anyone who is on, has called us in by phone, if you would like to speak, please press *9 on your phone and that will raise your hand electronically. And with that, Mr. Wynn, we have you back in with us. And if once again, you could state your name and your address and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair Pratt. Ian Wynn, 1990 Thornborough Road, Williamson's Landing. And I just want to pick up on something that was said, and I know it's been said at other public meetings, public hearings, is the perhaps consideration for a working group of people that are stakeholders in this part of the tourism industry on the coast, and members of the Chamber of Commerce, and just it's not unheard of. Certainly to have working groups to deal with complex matters that that maybe the expertise of staff and directors, hey, I sat there, I know, that it's not unheard of to look to those people that live and breathe what the issues are. So there's an opportunity here. It's been around for a long time, this issue, and but it keeps getting stuck in this quagmire where the only avenues that we have are through public information meetings and public hearings, which are very complicated to manage and to withdraw all of the information that is pertinent. So perhaps this is an opportunity to consider a working group. We had an excellent organization here on the Sunshine Coast a few years ago, the Sunshine Coast Cottage Owners, B&B and Cottage Owners Association, well over 100 people before the advent of short-term rental accommodations. And those group of people, they had their own guidelines. We were members ourselves, and there was lots of inspections that were done and guidelines that had to be adhered to, that there's that expertise is out there in the community. And I would just encourage you to please consider a working group to deal with this complex issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nguyen. Directors, do you have any questions Director McMahon?
Not really a question. I just appreciated the word quagmire. Around about now, 10:04, the word quagmire is feeling pretty good. Thank you, Ann.
It is indeed a quagmire.
Thank you for the vocabulary, Ian. We appreciate that. Other directors, any other questions or comments? Okay. Thank you, Ian. And once again, you know the drill. We'll move you back into the attendees list. Just going to remind everyone, if you would like to submit a written submission, you can email it to planning.department@scrd.ca. It has to arrive, or it has to be sent prior to the close of this meeting. And with that, I'm going to ask staff if we have anybody else who is on the list for the first or the second time. I see Krista Wolin has raised her hand.
Yes,
she
we are
spoke
just
once,
bringing
she
her
hasn't
in
spoke
now.
a second time. Krista is just getting moved into the panelist lounge. Krista, we have you here. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So once again, I just need you to state your name and address, and you have 3 more minutes.
Thank you. My name is Krista Wallen. I live at 5112 Anna Road in Sechelt. I'm so appreciative to hear the variety of ideas, and I just wanted to punctuate that it seems very short-sighted to just stop allowing or sort of limit it to a more B&B style of yesteryear. I think it would transform our community in a really negative way. As a medium young person on the coast, I know how hard it is to carve out a living. I just think of all the small businesses that would be negatively impacted. I have absolutely zero skin in the game. When I talk to my real estate clients about Airbnbs, I always say, like, it's a lot of work. I don't really think you make that much money. So I actually don't really encourage it as a viable business opportunity, and I don't do it myself. But I do think that the tourism industry on the coast, and like one of the gentlemen said before, the COVID is really going to cause us to have to pivot hard. And I don't foresee a lot of outside travel happening out of BC. And so it for the people who are going to be struggling here for a while, it just, and I don't actually mean the B&B people or the people who run short-term rentals. I mean the restaurants, the coffee shops, all that. Yeah, it's not something that I think you can just strike out of an opportunity like that out of a community. And I definitely feel for the people who've been negatively impacted in their own homes. And I think you could be negatively impacted by a long-term tenant or a bad neighbor owner is just the same. The 3 strikes you're out rule is maybe the most cost effective to administer, and a focus group in the community to find a better path forward that works for everyone, and balances the need for a viable economy as well as a cottage style lifestyle. And the last point I'll make is people always say, oh, it's going to change the coast. The coast used to be for people who are coming for part-time. This place is full of cottages where people only live 2 months of the year. But back in that time, you could afford to have a little cottage here and not have it be rented out. So it's actually not a huge change to the way people used to live on the coast. It's just real estate costs so much now, and living and having a family costs so much that it's cost prohibitive. And the very last point I'll make is I have lots of friends that I grew up with here who come back every summer with their families to stay in their community that they grew up in, to give their kids some beach time on Henderson or whatever. And so we're saying no to those people as well, which I also think is a real shame. That's a more passionate take on this. I just don't think you should stop it.
Okay, thanks, Krista.
Thank you.
Directors, any questions for Krista, please? Okay, I'm not seeing any. We'll go to the next speaker, 604-740-1006. I believe that was Dave, if I'm remembering correctly. Hello, 740-1006. Is that Dave?
Yeah. Hey guys,
yeah,
sorry, my phone died last time. I had to plug it in.
Okay, so we need you to state your name, your full name and address for the record. And then go ahead, you have 3 minutes for your comments.
Yeah, my name's Dave Savard, and I have a place at 962 Cemetery Road in beautiful Gibsons, BC.
Okay, and go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Just wanted to say that I feel like the people, that strictly oppose the Airbnbs, let's face it, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about B&Bs, we're talking about Airbnbs. I think that the people that strictly oppose the Airbnbs are the same people that also oppose any sort of chain, hotel or motel, from ever being on the coast. And it's a shame to think that we have, the size of towns that we have, and there's literally absolutely no mainstream decent accommodation for people. And for people that live, we have a small place in Lower Gibsons. We don't have a guest room. And if we want people to come over and visit us, which I think is a normal thing that most people want to do, there literally is no available hotels and motels for them to be in. So I think it's just a little bit small-minded to just totally poo-poo the idea of short-term rentals. And I think, like a lady touched on earlier, it's really important that if you actually understand how they work, it's strictly self-policing. The rating system is for the people that stay and the people that own the property. So it polices in that it keeps a high standard of accommodation, because all the people that come and stay obviously rate you, and then the people that are there get rated by you as well. And it keeps those troublesome people that I think that the people are worried about, it keeps them out. We've all read the horrific stories in the paper of, I think it was a young man from Langley, and he rented that house in West Vancouver and had a big party and wrecked the house. That just simply, I don't think, is an issue here. I've never heard of it happening here. And yeah, it's really dramatic and makes a headline, but it self-polices in the fact that that person will never, ever be able to rent an Airbnb again. Simply never to happen. No one will ever let them in their place. So I think it's something that I appreciate being a business person, that obviously maybe there needs to be a fee that's collected. The SCRD, wants to have a business license or an inspection process. I also think that's important, because these units, whether they're a basement suite, a standalone house or whatever, should be inspected, and it is maybe another sort of backdoor opportunity for the SCRD to sort of police these kind of things and make sure that these units, whether they're short-term or long-term for that matter, are in fact built properly and up to code, i.e. smoke detectors, that kind of thing. So I just feel like poo-pooing the idea altogether is missing the boat big time.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Directors, do you have any questions for Dave? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Thank you so much for plugging your phone in and joining us again.
Yeah.
Okay, and staff will move you back to the waiting room. Next up on our list, we have Kirsty Tozak to speak for a second time.
Did I sound okay? Another realtor. Did I sound okay?
Okay, and I'll once again put the reminder, if you would like to submit a written submission, you have until this meeting is officially called to a close this evening to do so, and you can do that through planning.department@scrd.ca. So Kirsty, we have you back online. You are muted right now, but when you are ready, if you can state your name and your address again for the record, and you have 3 more minutes.
Yeah, I don't need 3 more minutes. Thank you, Lori. Kirsty Tozak, 5004 Bay Road, Davis Bay, Seashelt. I don't know, I don't want this to be a conflict, but I am a part of the workforce housing project, and part of this is to be able to house our, dentist, nurse, police, firemen, etc. And it is a problem because when they go to get a job, they need to have housing. They're not going to buy a home because they might be here on contract. And some of them actually only need a short term. So it does get put into the pool of short-term rentals, and they're an integral part of our community. So I just thought I would bring that up as much as it's been kind of lovely during the COVID time that there's been a little bit more availability for people that would normally want to do short-term holiday rentals to be able to rent to these type of people. They don't want to do regular rentals because they're worried of what's going to happen with their place, or they might get someone they can't kick out. We all know that it's very hard to get rid of an actual tenant, but these are people that might only need a 3-month or even shorter because they're a specialty person. And I think that's also another thing to think of, which is why I keep going back to someone being able to regulate it all. So that's all I wanted to mention, because we are having a trouble with housing them, and therefore they can't take on the jobs. So we've had specialty nurses, doctors, I have many of them, I have many calls, and they can't take the jobs because of that. I think that's something that I should have mentioned before. That's all.
Okay. Thank you, Kirsty. Directors, any questions for Kirsty? I'm not seeing any, but thank you very much for sticking around and speaking for a second time. If you would like to speak for a third time, you can certainly go back into the waiting room and put your hand up. Okay, so with that, we are still on the second time for further submissions. I haven't seen any other hands go up, but I will check in with staff.
We don't have anyone that's not on the list, so...
Okay. All right. So with that, I am going to call a third and final time for further submissions. We have the start of a speakers list right now. I would like to remind everyone who is within our waiting room, if you would like to get added to the speakers list, please electronically raise your hand, or if you're on a phone, press *9 to be added in. And once again, this is in regards to directly to the zoning amendments with the zoning amendment bylaws that we have coming up. So this is what this public hearing is for. So I'm going to officially call a third and final time for further submissions. We have John Stanway is on our list, and we'll just bring John into our panelist room.
Hi, Lori.
Hi, Mr. Stanway, you are within our room. So once again, if you could state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes to speak to the bylaw amendments.
John Stanway, 1574 Smith Road, Gibsons, BC, 981 Chamberlain Road, Gibsons, BC. I just want to let everyone know that first off, there was a survey done maybe a year, 2 years ago, and the result of the survey showed that the chamber in Gibsons and the chamber in Sechelt had no problem with the bylaw. The chamber in Gibsons did a survey, and 71% were against your bylaw. Just so you know, against the change of this bylaw to 2 bedrooms, 71%. Mr. Henderson also told me that the Sechelt chamber was against this bylaw. Now, this is business people, and it's very important to take this into consideration. We're in very difficult times right now. These are unprecedented times, and we need this money on the Sunshine Coast. And I'm talking about restaurants, I'm talking about laundromats, golf courses, fishing charters. I see firsthand the money that's spent. Tourism is the #1 driver of the economy here. And I'm sure you'll all agree, because I took this off the SCRD stats, that tourism is the #1 driver. Hotels in Gibsons, there's 1. That's it, 1. And the hotels, we are not competing against them. We are bringing a service that brings more people to the Sunshine Coast that the ordinarily hotels would not bring. I brought people up from the farthest United States, from Iceland, from Japan, from the UK, and again, never a complaint. So I don't think limiting 2 bedrooms is really the intelligent option here. I would have liked to seen more input on this public hearing from the directors. I've seen very little. And my daughter, Samantha, has spoken with, I'm not sure if I got her name right, McCone and Ties, who were very, very insightful on their replies. My concern is too, spyware, to spend $15,000 on some of the taxpayers' money. Everyone's hurting here. And again, with taxes, I pay $16,000 a year in property taxes. And the concern with one of your directors was that hotels pay more taxes. Every dollar that comes through our short-term rental, 16% of it goes into taxes. 16%. So how about some accolades for that? Like, how about some appreciation for bringing these tourists to the Sunshine Coast instead of being dumped on here? Please think this thing through. Get creative. Think of a way to police this thing better. And the 1454 Smith Road, I owned that house for 2 years, ran it successfully with not 1 complaint. When I sold it, an offshore buyer bought it and ran it, and the neighbors were up in arms because they didn't run it properly. It wasn't done properly. And they were major
Mr. Stanway,
voices.
You are at the end of your 3 minutes. I'm going to ask directors if you have any questions for Mr. Stanway. I want to comment just on a process piece, Mr. Stanway, is a public hearing is not meant to be a debate. We're here, the directors are here to listen. They're not here to debate anything that comes forward. So that's why you're not hearing a lot from us. We're here to listen. And so that's just a process piece, as that's how public hearings are.
Some insight would be appreciated, though, some kind of feedback, because at the end of the day, you people are civil servants of the people of the regional district. And
okay, and so to clarify what the process is from this point forward is staff takes all of the comments that have been heard and all of the feedback that has been received via email, regular mail, and anything that's been said verbally tonight. They take it, they put it together, synthesize it into a report that comes to the directors at a future public meeting, which is where we will have our deliberations and discuss the information that we've heard and the staff report. So that's how that moves forward.
I appreciate that, but please grant me 5 more seconds to tell you that we've been keeping track of all of this conversation, and there's been 16 for, 67%, 3 neutral, 13%, and 5 against, 21%. So you may want to rethink the course that you're taking. These are we've got a statistician here that's keeping track of everything, and please take that into consideration.
And all of that is being taken into consideration, and that's one of the pieces that staff puts together within their report, is if people are speaking, if residents are speaking very much in for or against, it is tracked within the reports, and you can see that after past public hearings. With that, I'm going to ask staff to move Mr. Stanway into our waiting room, please, and we're going to go back to our speakers list. We do have a few speakers who have only spoken once. And then so we are going to go to the next one on our list, which is Fran Miller.
Yes.
Yes. So Fran, yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
So once again, if you can state your name and your address, and then go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. I wanted to confirm that I am at 676 Hillcrest Road in Gibsons. I just wanted to add that I am currently on the board of directors for the Gibsons and District Chamber of Commerce. And I wanted to add that I was involved with I didn't want to speak for the Chamber of Commerce without putting something out to the members of the Chamber of Commerce. So we have over 200 people who are businesses in the Chamber of Commerce for the Gibsons and District. So the SCRD and the Gibsons thing. And they were, as John said, John Stanway confirmed. I just wanted to confirm that we did put the thing out about your concern with the SCRD and the short-term rentals, and it was 72 or 73% in favor of short-term rentals. So they were against your bylaws about 2 bedrooms or less, and they were pro short-term rentals as being an important part of our Sunshine Coast district. So I don't know if the Chamber of Commerce has sent you anything about that, but I just wanted to confirm that the Gibsons and District Chamber of Commerce did agree with that.
Okay. So. Thank you, Fran. So if it would be best to email the planning department prior to the end of this meeting tonight,
Okay.
planning.department@scrd.ca with that information, just to make sure, just in case they haven't.
Okay.
So it has to be done, it has to be received prior to the end of us closing this meeting.
Okay.
Directors, do you have any questions?
Department?
Planning, so planning.department@scrd.ca, and it's also in the chat too. So
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fran. Any questions for Fran? No? Okay. Thank you, Fran. We're going to move you back to the waiting room, and thank you for being here with us. Next up on my list, I see Jane McHugh. Hello, Jane. We can see you.
Hi.
And
it's dark in my house now. This meeting's been going on a long time, but by golly, the last person that
Jane?
said Sorry.
I'm just going to stop you for a second. Name and address, please, and then your 3 minutes.
7 Lee Road.
Thank
Irving
you.
Glen. The last fellow just got my dander up so much I had to call back in again because, you know, the rest of us have let it go. This is a meeting to find out about this. Stop it. We've all put our part in. It's time for you people to go home and us to go to bed. And there we go. So one thing that I didn't say before was we live in an R1. I don't. I'm R2. We're not even zoned for this kind of thing that's going on in our neighborhood. So we need enforcement that way too. And I hope that that's a point that goes through. The stat loaders or whatever they are figuring out that everything is going to be done by how many people are in a phone in is not a reasonable way of looking at things. And Lori, and I, you know, think you're lovely as a realtor, and I'm sure there's other realtors, but suddenly we have a lot more realtors coming on who are saying, oh, you know, we need this and we need this. Well, we do need some of it. That's okay, but we're getting loaded with that. And the last thing is, you know, I'll say once again, this has changed our neighborhood, and people can say all they want about we need the money, we need that. If we were in that case, Canada would not be looking after us in the COVID situation right now. We do need the money, it's true, but some things are more important. And for me, quality of life is important. And my last thing to say is hello to Bryce, because it's so lovely that he's on the thing. So good night and goodbye.
Hi, Jane.
That's Miss McCuit to you.
Okay. Thank you, Jane. Do I need to say Miss McCuit as well? No. Does anyone have any questions for Jane? Jane, I think you taught 2 of my 3 children as well. So I think you retired before the 3rd one started. Lucky you. Okay. All right. Thank you, Jane. With that, we'll move Jane back to our waiting room. And next up, we have Rola Priatel. Okay, I see Rola is joining us.
Yeah, can you?
Hi, Rola. Sorry, you got bumped down a little bit because there were a couple of people that had only spoken once that got in before you did. So thank you for your patience and for sticking around. And once again, if you can state your name and address, and you have 3 more minutes.
Yeah, no worries. Rola Priatel, 3241 Beach Ave. It was a question and a comment. The question is, you wanted us to send our letters before the end of before the end of this meeting. So the guidelines I said I would send had to be sent like before now?
They need to be sent before we close the meeting tonight. If you wanted to submit them as a written submission, because you had mentioned earlier that it was something you wish you could share with us. So,
but see, I'm on the computer for Zoom. How will I be able? Like, it's a cut and paste from my website. You know what I mean?
so you could send a link to your website and reference it in your email.
Okay. So what I did is, just so that I don't miss that thing, I just not to miss the actual timeline. I sent an email to say, hi, just want to let you know I'm going to send you my guidelines. Thanks, just so that you know, and then I could send it as an addendum. Can I do that?
It's got to come in before the end, before we close the meeting. I will let you know, because this is the first time we're doing an electronic meeting. We're going to be really kind of holding out towards the end, so you may want to log off sooner if you needed the extra computer time.
Okay.
Yeah, but we can't keep it open indefinitely. So it does need to be sent before the close. Anything that you want us to see, it was just a suggestion, because you had said you wanted us to see those. So.
Oh, okay, gotcha. And the other one was a comment that would have been a lot cooler had we been in person. I would have just butted in when the guy suggested not that I need to sit on yet another board, but I was going to volunteer to sit on that working group that was suggested. I thought it was a great idea. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rola. Directors, do you have any questions for Rola before we put her back in the waiting room? Okay, I'm not seeing anything, Rolla, so we're going to put you back in the waiting room.
Thank you.
And there you go. Next up on our list, we have Mr. Ian Wynn will be joining us again. And while I'm waiting, remember, if you want to submit a written submission before the close of this meeting, it needs to go to planning.department@scrd.ca. It needs to be in before the close of this meeting if you would like to have that information considered by the board. So with that, Mr. Wynn, are you there?
Yes, thank you, Chair Pratt. Ian Wynn, 1990 Thornborough Road. And it was dark here, but now the sun is beginning to rise on beautiful West Howe Sound. So I just wanted to add a little bit more here. I did speak previously on tourism, but I wanted to build on something that Kirsty had said, and that is that there's a whole other market of people that need accommodations, and we need to have a very full complement of options for them. So whether it's a B&B or whether it's a short-term rental, it's the workers that come to the coast. So as Kirsty mentioned, there's healthcare workers, there's first responders, and very much so here in the southern part of the coast. There are the contractors that come and work at Howe Sound Pulp and Paper. They come here and they work on the mill shutdown. They need accommodations for a few weeks as they work under contract. There are BC Ferries workers that come and work out of Langdale. And as you know, the first ferry of the day starts here in Langdale. So they need overnight accommodation, and they're here for vacation relief. They're here all summer, and they need to have not just 1 or 2 nights. Quite often they need to be staying for 2 or 3 weeks for vacation relief. And then also in our industrial corridor, from Port Mellon down to Langdale or Twin Creeks, there are a lot of summer employment jobs where people come to work in the log sorts and work in the mill operations, and they need some temporary accommodations as well for periods of time, whether it be weeks or perhaps even a month. So, there's a whole other gamut of people, not just tourists, but people that need accommodation, and they need all of those options open to them so that they can come to the coast and they can work and they can contribute to our economy. And that's really what it's all about, is to build economic development on the coast and encourage economic development. So whether it be the tourism industry or any of our resource-based industries or our ferries, they need accommodation options. And that's why just limiting to a B&B type operation is too restrictive, and they need short-term rental accommodation options as well. So let's do what we can to encourage economic development here on the coast. Thank you.
Okay, terrific. Thank you very much, Ian. Directors, do we have any questions for Ian? Okay, Ian, we'll release you into the waiting room.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience and sticking around, and enjoy that sunrise in West Howe Sound.
Will do.
Take a picture, let us know what it looks like, because we're still at our computers. Next up on our list, we have another phone number. Oh, this is, I believe this is Dave again, 740-1006. I'm also going to remind anyone, if you would like to speak, because this is the third and final time for further submissions, to please make sure you raise your hand. If you are on a phone, it is *9. Otherwise, you can electronically raise your hand in the within the waiting room. And with that, once again, Dave, if you can state your full name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, it's Dave Savard, 962 Cemetery Road, beautiful Gibsons, BC. Just wanted to make another couple comments real quick before I go to bed, and Teacher Jane goes to bed as well. That I think it's easy, the longer this process goes on, as you can see, you know, which side of the fence people sit on by, I think like the one gentleman said, if you've got skin in the game or not, meaning of course, whether, you know, you're an operator of a short-term rental or not. I guess I just thought I would share my own personal experience with this, is that I'm not just maybe someone that would be thought of as a typical landlord that is just getting greedy and wants to go short-term. I have 5 units right now that are rented to long-term people. I think I'm probably the last guy in Gibsons that has that many. And then I just want to do 1 unit with Airbnb. So I kind of feel like I'm doing my part. Some days I feel like I'm housing half the town, and I would just put forth a challenge to anyone sitting in this meeting or anyone listening to this right now. If you've got 5 units that you're renting to people and providing housing, I would say that you're more than doing your part. And that's all.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Directors, do you have any questions for Dave? No, I'm not seeing any. Thank you for continuing to stay with us, Dave. And if you wanted to say anything else, you have about 1.5 minutes left. Otherwise, staff will put you back into the meeting room or into the waiting room.
No, that's everything.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you for being here with us this evening. And we have reached the end of our speakers list. I had promised that we would keep everything open for just to make sure that everyone had a full opportunity to participate in this public hearing. We wanted to make sure everyone is given ample opportunity. So please, if you would like to say anything before we close this meeting, you need to raise your hand now, either by *9 on your phone or using your electronic hand signal within the Zoom app. I see we do have a hand up. We've got Terrence. And we're just moving Terrence into the panelist room. And then for anybody that is within our waiting room, we are on the 3rd and final call for further submissions. If you'd like to speak or have your voice heard, please make sure you raise your hand now. And once again, or press send on any of those emails before we close this meeting. And once again, emails are to be sent to planning.department@scrd.ca prior to the close of this meeting. And with that, we'll go over to Terrence. Terrence, once again, if you can state your name, full name and address, and then you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Again, Terrence Ruger, 1834 Ocean Beach, Esplanade. And as I mentioned, so my partner has 3 other properties in Gibsons. We rebuilt 2 houses there that we rent out to long-term tenants. And so we're, part of the solution as well. We do find that even after, replacing all the windows, painting everything, making sure that, we made the places much better than when they were purchased. And, we had to adjust our rent down lower and lower and trying to strike a balance there between finding a good tenant and a reasonable price. So I don't really buy into the idea that there is no, rental available for the people that want it. I've seen other people come over and find accommodation. Likewise, our Airbnb when we do, because I do use this for myself, and when I do rent it out too, I've had construction people coming over. I've had BC Hydro or people coming over doing contract work for BC Hydro. So I've supplied 5 day at a time rental. So I think we're putting a real contribution in here, and as the statistics have been alluded to, if you've got a few people that are complaining that there is a problem with the short-term rentals, with the bad behaviors and the bad actors, absolutely, those people's rights need to be respected, and that needs to be respected through enforcement, not taking, if you've got, you hear the numbers I've been hearing tonight about who's represented tonight and the results you got back from your survey that you sent out, although I don't recall seeing that survey, never came in my mailbox, but however that went out. But the point is that, to make such sweeping changes because a few people are complaining, I would really like in a follow-up or something like that to this meeting, I'd like to see what those statistics are, and why can't we just address those concerns? And absolutely, as I said, if somebody has a complaint, they need real-time action. They don't. If there's somebody partying and acting like jerks, and this has happened repeatedly at that property, they don't want to wait till Monday or Tuesday where somebody then responds to their complaint. So by all means, those people's concerns need to be addressed.
Okay, thank you, Terrence. Directors, do you have any questions for Terrence? No,
okay.
I'm not seeing.
Okay, well, if there are that many complaints, like I said, then I certainly hope that with your fines, there's some way that you guys can address enforcement.
Thank you so much for staying with us this evening, Terrence. And directors will, staff will move you back into the waiting room. We have Debbie Carson waiting to speak. So Debbie is going to get moved into the panelist room here. Okay, so I see Debbie has arrived and she's just on mute right now. So Debbie, if you can state your name and address for the record, and then you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Lori. Debbie Carson, 1861 Lower Road, Roberts Creek. I just wanted to make a mention that I think that the people, for the most part, the people that are speaking and that have a concern about this are people that are operators of short-term rentals. And it seems to me that until we had an issue with a short-term rental in our neighborhood, it wasn't on my radar at all. So I think that what's happening is that people don't know about the issue because it's not being a problem for them. But if that changes in their neighborhood and then it becomes an issue, then it does become obviously something that's important to them. So I think it can be kind of skewed in the way of people that have a vested interest in terms of operating a short-term rental are the ones that are going to be speaking up more than those of us that have had the impact. So that was all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. Directors, do you have any questions for Debbie? Okay, I'm not seeing anything. Thank you for sticking around with us, Debbie. And if there's anything else you wanted to say, otherwise we'll have staff move you back into the waiting room.
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So we have reached the end of our speakers list. And as I said before, I promised that we would make sure everybody had an opportunity to speak. Once again, if you have not yet pressed send, you need to press send now if you're sending an email to planning.department@scrd.ca. bylaw.ca. I will elongate my remarks as long as I can to make sure that everyone has their opportunity to raise their hands or press *9 on their phone if they're joining us by phone, or to finish that email to planning.department@scrd.ca. It's been a very long evening. I trust that everyone has felt that they have had that opportunity to speak and be brought forward. I'm going to look to staff and see if anybody else has indicated and that they'd like to speak.
We do not have anyone here.
Okay. So, with no further comments, I'm not seeing any further hands raised. I've given ample opportunity and given fair warning many times. With no further comments, I now declare the hearing is closed for Sunshine Coast Regional District Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 310.184/2018 and Sunshine Coast Regional District Electoral Area A Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 337.118/2018. I'd like to thank, especially like to thank our staff, Yuli, Julie, Linda, and especially IT with Bryce and everybody else who I know behind the scenes has made this happen for us tonight for this first electronic public marathon hearing. Thank you all for staying around. Thank you to my alternate chair, who is also my vice chair, Darnelda Seegers. And thank you as well to our directors for all being with us here tonight. Director Hiltz from Area F, Director Tice from Area D, Director Kroll from the town of Gibsons, Director Toth, District of Sechelt, Director Lee, Area A, and Director McMahon, Area E. Thank you everyone for being here this evening. Thank you all for your attendance and your participation, and have a lovely evening, and what a wonderful way to end the month of June. And happy Pride, and we will see you tomorrow at Canada Day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And good night.
And good night. Good night,
job, Lori.
everyone.
Okay.